Noon, good evening, whatever time it is for you. Welcome to Strange Trek. I'm your boy, the Unpopular Black Gamer, aka Dante, and I'm joined always by my good friend Patrick. Say hello, Patrick.
Hello, everybody.
Once again, this is Strange Trek, where we just talk about the craziness of Star Trek or any particular episodes that we found that we may want to talk about that we feel that others haven't really hit on. Today's episode, we feel that people have hit on this, but just for the sake that this is known as the unpopular black gamer, we at least want to touch on the black characters of Star Trek. And today's episode is going to be Worf centered. With who the actor that plays Worf is Michael Dorn, who is a black man. We want to touch on the craziness that the next generation did to Worf, which we believe that Worf was done dirty in the next generation. I don't know how
Yep.
you feel about that, but we definitely feel that he was done dirty. So we want to at least explore that. What you got to say about that, Patrick?
Yeah. Two things came to mind in the intros. One, you mentioned that Worf is a black character, and then said that he's a black, played by a black actor. And I get what you're doing there, but I'm also kind of like, if you stepped into the fictional world of Klingons and be
Yeah,
like, "Y'all are black people," would they be
yeah,
like, "What?"
that's true. That's true. That's true. I guess
Like,
I guess I should like clean that up a bit. Good,
I mean,
very good point.
it's un, it's not totally necessary, but I think you said something like that last week, and I'm like, is he a black character? He's a Klingon,
The Klingon,
played by a black actor, but
the,
yeah,
there have been Klingons that have been played by white actors. So
yeah.
I do want to point
Questions.
that out. So the black the Klingons are not necessarily a black centered race. They just
I was gonna
look
say what
brown and black in the show. Uh
once
huh.
once you call them black, the white people that play the Klingons, I got questions. I would
Like
have to
what
have
the
questions
hell?
at that point.
Who are
Yeah,
we?
exactly. It's like who thought this was okay? It's not okay.
It's kind of like in our
Um,
community, even if you have like 10% black heritage in your in your DNA,
right.
you're considered black.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, Worf being done dirty in the next generation. I can see why the memory of that persists, but we'll get into it. But I just don't feel like he was done all that dirty. Like I get like it's a meme, and
Hmm.
I'm sure we'll talk about like the writing mechanic for why um, he ends up like fighting a lot outside of just him being like the warrior race. But like I don't know if it's necessarily done dirty, but I think just like our collective memory is like, oh yeah, he was supposed to be this Klingon hand to hand combat expert and just like lost every fight. And I think when we get into it, we'll see it's a little bit more balanced than that. I think.
Well, that's good that you feel that way because that at least give us like this counterbalance to the argument. But because I definitely feel like that he was done dirty. As much as I've
Okay.
rewatched The Next Generation and I've seen certain episodes, this is yeah, there were certain episodes where he was like they honored him as a character. Um, but what you'll find is in a lot of the earlier episodes, he was definitely done dirty.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
and I'll explain more as to why because I ended up when I did research for this particular episode, I did come across some things that was just like, huh, did not know that. That is very interesting. Uh, so let's get into it. So this is this was something that was coined by the Star Trek fans as the Worf effect. Mainly, it's when Worf is defeated by a enemy very easily, and it's not like oh they fight for a good minute and then Worf is automatically not automatic, but Worf uh, is is a loser at the end.
Mm-hmm.
This is a situation where 2 seconds, Worf is done. Like,
Right. Right.
not even like a full
Like he
blown
shouldn't even
battle.
clocked in that day. That
Exactly.
just of no help. Exactly.
So this is
But
this is something interesting in Hollywood where they do this, where they try to make a villain look more powerful by either killing or uh, or knocking out the strongest character. And I don't want to just say just Hollywood. This is also something that's occurred in
yeah,
animes, cartoons,
it's
other series that's in other countries other than America.
it's a writing mechanic, right?
Yeah,
And they did it in the MCU, like Thanos when he beats Hulk to a pulp. Like it's
yeah,
supposed to make you afraid because it's like, okay, well that was the strongest dude we have.
yeah.
Now what do we do? We're gonna have to have a different plan of attack because just throwing hands with this dude is not going to carry the day.
It's one of those things just to like make the audience kind of like be on the edge of their seats. Like, man, that was the strongest character on the show. Like, oh wow, he took care of him like handedly. Okay, this is somebody that we probably should pay attention more to. As an anime fan, I'll point this out because this is something that I thought about when I was doing my research. I'm a huge
Hmm.
Dragon Ball fan, so grew up watching Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, now Dragon Ball Super, which I actually just started like fully finishing those episodes. One of the things that they did within that series when Vegeta became a a regular series character, became a good guy, what they would do to measure the strength of the new baddie is have Vegeta fight him first before Goku did. So it was one of those situations where, oh dang, he took care of Vegeta. Like he's pretty strong, and
Right.
you don't see how things have happened where Goku has trained and everything, but you don't know exactly where Goku really lies with Vegeta at that point. You figure that he's stronger than Vegeta, but it still gives you that sense of like, oh man, how they gonna get out of this one?
Hmm.
Which is
Yeah. What?
mm-hmm,
Yeah, because when you're writing something like that, I haven't written any fiction yet. I write a bunch of other things, but you want to add drama by escalating the threat level, and you want to scale up the villain to the point where it's a challenge for the protagonist to overcome it.
mm-hmm,
So you want that rising tension, that sense of, man, what are they going to do, so that you can deliver a creative solution at the end of it.
mm-hmm.
So if Worf lived up to like, because it seems like the meme is like he's not living up to his reputation, could just like, fist fight everything and it just goes away, then that's not exciting television or
It's not.
movies, right?
It's not. And I get it. It makes sense because you don't want it to seem like, oh yeah, the strongest character comes. It's just like, oh yeah, once he comes, everything's over. They're done.
Yeah.
We're
It's also
good.
like yeah, exactly. It's also like why in Star Wars they didn't send Yoda to do everything because
Mm-hmm.
once Yoda shows up, there's not an issue. He's just gonna take care of it with the Force and a lightsaber and some gymnastics, right? So yeah, you have to equal things out, or there's no drama, there's no intrigue into what's going on.
That's actually a good point when thinking about Star Wars and going back to, I believe it was what, episode 2, when Count Dooku, when you first actually got to see Yoda fight with Count Dooku,
Hmm.
and you could see that Count Dooku actually held his own with Yoda, which showed the level of strength that Count Dooku had.
And before that, he beats Obi-Wan Kenobi and chops off Anakin's arm.
Yeah,
So like he rinses the two strongest dudes we've seen so far, and right when he's going to like kill one of them is when Yoda shows up and is like, "Okay, well, I guess I've been hanging back here for a minute. Let me let me stretch."
time for me to flex. All
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yep. Oh yeah. I've been having this cane through all of episode one, and now in episode two, up until this point, yeah, okay, yeah, really, truly, I don't need this cane. Hey, Force, oh, all right, I'm good. And then he starts doing all these
Yeah.
flips and stuff. It's like, wow.
It's like, well, and he also like absorbs force lightning as the first thing he does, and it's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, I forgot about that.
it's like I didn't know that was a possible solution to the problem. That's okay, good one, good on you. But see, that's the whole writing mechanic kind of spelled out, right?
Yes, yes, and you're right in pointing that out because when he fought Anakin and Obi-Wan, and those are the strongest people you saw up until that point, and when he handily took care of them, it was like it created that sense of dread. It created
Mm-hmm.
that, oh well, no, Dooku is a formidable Sith Lord, so who's going to be able to stop him? Which made it even more exciting. Well, not only that, people always wanted to see Yoda fight. If we're going back to that time when this episode was put in the theaters,
Yeah,
people all wanted to see Yoda fight, and up to that point, we never saw him fight. So when he did, it made it even more of a wow factor, which
mm-hmm.
is what you want to do as a good writer. But this is what I want to point out. I don't feel that they wrote this well to show that Worf is formidable enough to get beat up by these particular villains.
Okay.
You see where I'm going with this one?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna call fair. I think that is a fair argument. There, I think because what you're mentioning about the earlier seasons and the examples that you're going to bring up, they are relying on you seemingly having watched the movies in the
Mm-hmm.
original series and how
Mm-hmm.
afraid everyone else was of the Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, in those movies in the original series, I don't think the Klingons actually fight anything scary, right?
No,
Like,
they
I'm
only
not.
talk about how strong they are as a race because
Yeah,
they talk about how they're a warrior race and how they conquered all these planets and civilizations to expand their empire, and that was their way of showing how formidable the Cleons are. So it was one
yeah,
of those. This was one of those telling, not showing situations,
yeah, yeah,
which I feel like TNG should have did more showing than telling because they talked about how great Worf is as a fighter, but they never showed it enough to even warrant using him as the trope of, hey, this is our strongest person getting beat. And really to be truly honest with you, he technically isn't the strongest person on the Enterprise, if I'm
yes.
being truly honest. We
Every,
all know that Data as an android was stronger than Worf.
yeah, everyone should get nervous when Data can't win the fight. Like
Exactly.
that's when we should really freak out.
So
But
there,
instead, we get nervous when Data can't figure something out because he's the smartest person
because he's supposed to be the smartest
on
person.
the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there was one thing that I stumbled upon that I did not know. I don't know if you knew this or not. There was one piece of information that I stumbled upon when it came to Worf. In the first season, did you know that the producers did not initially want him as a regular cast character? Like, yeah,
Oh, oh, why?
yes.
What?
Uh, this this
Uh,
this was crazy to me too. So apparently, I'll read you the quote that I pulled off. It says supervising producer Robert Justman also originally saw Worf as a Klingon Marine serving on the Enterprise as a symbol of better Federation Klingon relations. They only just wanted him like pretty much to be seen, not truly fully
they
heard.
just wanted him as a token.
Yes.
They wanted a token Klingon.
Yes. It was a it
Oh,
was a
I feel
way
like
of
marching.
showing from
Can we
the
organize a march? Well, I guess we won. I guess we don't need to, but oh my god.
and I'm trying to
Who was this dude
remember
that wanted him as a token?
uh Okay, let's. This is allegedly now because we got to throw that
Okay,
out
we
there.
don't allegedly. We don't have lawsuit money. Allegedly.
Exactly, allegedly, he thought of him as just a character to show on the bridge of the
hmm
Enterprise, which is supposed to be one of their flagships of the Federation, showing a Klingon there because of what occurred in the Undiscovered Country from the original series movies. So it was just like, hey, look, uh, Klingons are now our allies. You see a Klingon on the bridge of the Enterprise in a Federation uniform. Boom! Look how far along we've come. So I see it from that. I do see it from that standpoint to show like the evolution of the Federation, and that Klingons have now started to join the Federation.
Okay, well, let me say why I think that's stupid as well as make believe racist.
Okay,
First
I'm
off, I
all
hope
ears.
this dude. I know DEI is under fire right now, but I hope this dude's not out there like hiring. Because God, um, it is stupid to do that because with all that background, if you put a Klingon on the bridge, I, even where the undiscovered country leaves off, I
Mm-hmm.
think everyone would be like, "Who is he? How did he get here? Why is he here?"
Mm-hmm.
The movie didn't end with like, and we will start serving in Starfleet. It was just like, we're gonna stop, killing each other. We're gonna be allies. And then you jump to like he's on the bridge. Like if that plan had worked out where he was just like in some episodes every once in a while and didn't do anything, I think our podcast would be totally different. I'll be like, how much wasted potential was in Worf?
That's true. That is true, and that would definitely be one of our topics.
Yeah.
But
Wow. Well.
it's crazy because he became such a fan favorite, um, and I truly want to believe or truly want to say that he was beloved by all races, regardless of whether
hmm
you were black or not. Like, and people want to see not only Worf but like Klingons more within the pantheon of the Federation because especially in like season 1, the episode Heart of Glory, where the two Klingons, where it was three at first, three Klingons that were transported from this freighter that got destroyed. One of them died, so it was just two other Klingons. That was more of a Worf centered episode, and you got to see for the first time some of the traditions of the Klingons and how
Right.
they like how when a warrior passes away, open his eyes and howl to scare away the what was the exact thing that they stated? It was to
It was to warn Tovokor that a
yes
warrior was on its
was
way
on its way. Yes.
because Klingon heaven must be wild.
Oh, have they? I know
Look
they
out, heaven!
showed. I
This
know.
dude's on his way.
I know they showed the gates of Stovercore. That was in Voyager. But did they ever show like what Stovercore really was like? I don't think they ever showed that.
I don't have any memory of that. Mm-mm.
So that would be crazy if we ever got a depiction of what Stovercore was like. Uh, but I believe, and I don't have any articles or anything to depict this as being true or not. I believe from that episode, it really there was a lot of traction more towards Worf's character to be centered in more episodes, and fans
Yeah,
really started loving him. And it's just like, hey, give us more Worf.
you know, now that you mention this, Geordi also started out as a junior officer, despite
Mm-hmm.
arguably being the most famous person on that show at that
Mm-hmm.
point in time. I,
Yeah, because of Reading Rainbow. Agreed.
yeah, we're not gonna. Not the Roots. Jesus,
And
Roots.
Roots. Yeah, and Roots.
He was not a drummer for the Roots back in the 80s, but he was Kunta Kinte. We can say the supervising producer's name offline. I'm getting suspicious. Our two black actors were. junior
with
officers to
junior
start.
officers to start.
One
And
was supposed to just be in the background and not really do anything. I'm like,
and it wasn't until season two that Geordi got his comeuppance more, uh, and it wasn't until Tasha Yar uh, died that Worf got more of his up and comings as well, becoming the
yeah,
head of
yeah.
security. So,
But it's
uh
but it's
huh,
almost like if I had to describe what the fans did, it's almost like they took an affirmative action to make sure that an actor of color didn't get overlooked in the show, right?
yeah.
Or did I or oh,
Well,
did I say affirmative action? I sure did.
I look at it as the evolution. It wasn't, in my opinion, when going back and watching season one, season two, and even season three, which most Trekkies believe that season one and season two of the Next Generation were rough seasons, which in certain
Mhm.
aspects, yes, they were. Especially with season two having to coincide with the writer strike around that time, it was difficult for them to
You don't
create good
you don't just
episodes.
jump to Shades of Grey and watch it over and over again.
No, that's probably one of the episodes that I actually skipped. But, but
Whew. I hope they saved a lot of budget.
just like here's the other thing. Just like with other actors that have portrayed great characters within Star Trek, you would. It's crazy to know that Michael Dorn, that wasn't one of his first characters on Star Trek. He also played the lawyer for Kirk and
Yeah,
McCoy during the Undiscovered Country.
yeah, because when we grew up, right? Like we were like in between Star Treks and
Mm,
things like that, and kid me watching the Undiscovered Country and then watching Star Trek: The Next Generation later never put that together. It took
never put
until
it. Yeah,
adulthood when I was watching, and I was like, "Is that Worf? What's Worf doing there?
I think
Did he?
I read
Did he?
somewhere where somebody believed that to be like Worf's grandfather. So Worf's
Yeah,
grandfather was a Klingon quote unquote lawyer that defended
I
Kirk and McCoy.
I prefer that it's in my head canon. It's actual Worf that was going through the wormhole by Deep Space Nine and got sent
Hilarious,
back by the prophets. Uh, but you know,
hilarious. Another time travel episode
yeah,
that
yeah,
will
just
that will probably make no sense.
exactly. Why did the prophet send him back to try to kill Kirk and, and Bones? Who knows?
And uh, so you know that there was a YouTube video that was created where someone pieced together all the times that Worf got his butt handed to him on the Next Generation, and they also threw in some DS9. Well, no, that was more the updated one. There was one that was just TNG centric, and that was
Hmm.
shown to Michael Dorn. Did you know
Oh,
that?
I didn't know he. I didn't know he had seen it. I didn't know he was aware of.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he found it
okay.
hilarious, but he also pointed out that that was one of the main reasons why when they approached him to join the DS9 cast, that he put in that he didn't he didn't want to be the guy that got beat up or shot down all the time, because
Oh,
it wasn't just Worf getting beat up all the time. It was also whenever he suggested things to Captain Picard, he always kept getting shot down.
now that I would be more offended by than like as playing that character
Hmm.
than getting beat up or shot. Like at some point I do have to be right. I'm the head of security. Like I can't be wrong all the time.
I mean, granted though, they always kept making his character uh, be more um, it,
Aggressive.
aggressive. Yeah, always point
Mm-hmm.
towards, yeah, let's fire upon them. Like, whoa, Worf, we're at a like a 4 or 5 right now. You went to a 10. Like, bring it down a notch.
Yeah, but they did one where was it Q? Maybe it was Q, like appeared on the view screen. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember another Star Trek podcast, Treks in the City, talking about this, and they made some really good jokes about it. And like he appeared in the view screen, and Worf like pulled his phaser and pointed it at the screen, and like Picard looks at him like,
What are
"What?
you
You're
gonna
gonna
do?
shoot a hole in the
What
wall?"
you gonna shoot through the view screen? You know that
Yeah,
it's just a wall, right? And then also, like beyond that wall leads into outer space.
yeah, yeah. So I definitely would want that altered if I was going to do another show as Worf. Like, I'm not going to come on as a lieutenant commander, chief strategic officer, and just have people call me stupid for 3 or 4 seasons, however long he was on there.
When,
I think that's fair.
which was actually really fair because when they brought him on, he was brought in during the time where the Klingons ramped up their aggressions towards the Cardassians, and it turned out to be this huge thing. So they brought him to be that um, chief intelligence officer that understood the Klingons enough to where they could combat this situation more
Yeah,
effectively.
and
So,
this is like one of
uh,
my favorite two-parters. Like, they were also like not even like ready to fight them yet because that happens at the end of two-parter. These
mhm,
Klingons show up and he's like, I don't know what's going on, and they're not telling me anything. It takes a Klingon to
Noah Klingon.
figure this, yeah, to
Hmm.
know the Klingons, and then he's like, your first mission is to figure out why they're all here and what's going on because there's too many. All of that sounds very racist, but I get when a fleet looks like a fleet, right? It's like, why is
I'm.
there a fleet of Klingon ships at my at
I
my space
mean, this is.
station? It's something you want to know.
I mean, this is something that is done in corporate America as well. Like, if we're being real, like, um, in situations where you are uh, providing a product to a certain community, you want to be able to bring in people that can relate more to that community to be
Mm-hmm.
able to sell that particular product because it's much simpler for someone of that same community to relate to that person rather than somebody who's not. There are some that are able to, but you can get more um, people to relate to that person if they come from the same background.
Yeah.
So that's
And
what they
sometimes to
were.
get those people
Hmm.
into there, you have to take an affirmative action to find them and put them in there.
I like how
Sometimes you
you,
have to do that.
I like how you threw in affirmative action.
Oh, I'm not trying to get political. I was just trying to describe the type of action you have to take sometimes.
Comparative to
To,
some of
to
our other episodes, we're not getting political in this particular episode. All right, all right. We don't want to raise tensions to the craziness that some people have when it comes to their political ideologies. All right. Uh,
this is I know we're not gonna like say it, but we have a joke in our friend group about how the Kendrick Lamar halftime show sounded. I get it. We don't want to go full there.
oh man, you gonna make me listen to that right after this podcast.
We're
uh,
not gonna play it, and we're not gonna.
we are not
If
gonna
you
play
know,
it.
if you know, you know. There's a TikTok out there that's hilarious about how maybe certain communities heard the Kendrick Lamar halftime show.
But I do want to point out to you the times where they did Worf dirty, and I do apologize. I don't have the episode titles and the season number and episode number for a lot of these, but I do want to point these out because this will show how crazy they did Worf. Because once again, I want to point this out in the first few episodes of Star Trek, they never depicted how strong Worf was. Like he never fought somebody that you would consider pretty strong and he just defeated them, which would establish how strong of a character he really is. Like,
Yeah, I think
uh huh.
I agree. I think in modern television, because I'm going to counter at some point, and I'm not going to counter on this. I think in modern television, you would be at least 6 or 7 episodes in. It'd be like the Thanos versus Hulk fight. Like you would have seen him,
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
heard about it, seen him beat a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
and save the day a few times by doing it. Before that one time, it doesn't happen. It's like extremely dramatic. Usually in like the mid-season finale
Mm-hmm.
or maybe like the right before the last episode of the season. Now that's writing to like 10 to 12 seasons, right? Episodes in a season, not 22. So I don't know when the right time would have been to drop it. But yeah, I totally agree.
I
It
mean,
could have been written differently.
and by that token, using the MCU example that you just brought up, like you had the Incredible Hulk movie in 2009. That first show like how strong of a character he is, regardless of whether you read the comic or not. It depicted like how strong the Hulk was, and then by the end he
Hmm.
defeated Abomination. Uh, that like it took a lot, but he at the end manhandled him.
Right.
And then throwing him into the rest of the MCU, um, even going to the first Avengers movie with Loki being a strong character to the point where they call him a god, and that scene, it's funny because I actually saw a clip of that scene this morning, uh, where he
Great
grabs
scene.
Loki. Loki is like, "Stop! I am I am a god. You puny." I don't know the exact words, but he grabs him and just like, "Yee yee yee yeah
Yeah.
yeah," and just like puny
Oh,
god walking away.
and you, and you know what? They actually did the same trick again because Loki. Well, maybe you kind of referred to this in
Uh
passing,
huh.
but I want to call out like Loki beats Captain America in the beginning of the
Mm.
movie because
Mm-hmm.
it's lower powered, not as martial arty, not as tech savvy Captain America. So we don't know how the fight would get rerun now. But yeah, he like Captain America goes in to try to like box him 1940 style and is not doing well until Stark shows up.
Exactly. Well, that was also a way of like showing how rusty Cap was since being frozen. Uh,
Hmm.
but like, yeah, to your point, that even when you saw him in the first Captain America movie, you saw how much butt he was beating. Uh, and man, phrasing. When you saw how much how well he was beating up a lot of the enemies. Uh,
Boy, our no cursing rule is going to get put to the test. And
oh man, like tough, tough on this one.
yeah,
Uh,
if
uh,
there's a word that starts with an A, that would have made that sentence go better.
way better, way better. Uh, but like, and then we like what you said by the token when he fought Loki, and how Loki was pretty much had the upper hand against him until Captain America, not Captain America, until Iron Man showed up, and then at
Hmm.
the end with Hulk utterly destroying him, really uh, showed how strong Hulk was. So when by the time you
Yep.
got to the third Avengers movie, where Thanos was finally uh, shown as the main protagonist, antagonist, excuse me, um, the very beginning of the movie, he is handedly taken out, like
Yeah.
handedly, which showed like
And he
Thanos
also kills Loki at the beginning of the movie.
and
So.
kills Loki. Yeah, which shows like, oh dang, like man, he is strong. Which, like I
Hmm.
said, by that token, they didn't depict that, and which is crazy because even like the second episode, well, the second, really the third episode, the second episode was the two part of the Encounter at Farpoint. Um, they more so showed Tasha Yar, um, and this is one of those episodes that we think that is not one of the greatest, where they went to the planet with the planet of black people.
Oh, the
Uh,
planet that supervising producer probably wrote.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Allegedly.
allegedly,
Allegedly. All right.
allegedly.
So, like, you got to see Tasha Yar's skills, but the
Against
character
black people.
that you but the character that you are using as the antithesis of strength for your characters, he's not, like, you don't show that. He's only talked about how strong he is. That's
Yeah,
weird to me.
yeah. Nah, I think I will concede that point. You won't get any argument out of me. Like, I think in modern television, it's really easily fixable. Um, I think at
Mm-hmm.
some point, no, they don't even do that in the first couple seasons. Because I was like, I thought at some point they tried to show it in his workout routine, but that's not until the third season, I guess. At some point, I get screwed up on when he becomes chief of security. Because I think I made this mistake last week, thinking he didn't become chief until season 3. I think he becomes chief in season
In
2.
season two,
So,
yeah, it's season
yeah,
two when
okay.
he becomes.
So, if anyone commented on the last episode, I didn't see it. I remembered
It's
later that
misremembered.
I made the mistake. Yeah.
And
Um,
we apologize for that. I would definitely say that at least the last two episodes were not fully researched episodes. We were
I
pretty
apologize for nothing.
we,
We have lives.
we were pretty
We have
much
stuff we
spinning
have to
off the
do.
top of the dome on that one. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we have lives. So we wanted to do the episodes, but we found topics where we could talk more with the knowledge that we already had in our minds. And unfortunately, that our minds do betray us. So sorry,
From time to time. Very, very, not very often.
not very often, but it happens, even to the best of people, even the smartest people. So, um, but I do want to point out, especially like in season one. Season one, one of the main things that, one of the main episodes that uh, come to mind is the season finale of season one, where Worf gets his butt beat by the admiral who got taken over by that parasite. Now,
And
granted,
this is my first. Oh, do you want me
Riker
to jump in or are you?
Riker did get his butt beat before Worf came in. I will concede that point.
And this also brings up, first off, yes, Riker is also supposed to be like a great hand-to-hand combatant train.
Mm-hmm.
They show earlier in the season when his dad shows up to like Macon. Oh no, this is season 1. Never mind. That doesn't happen until season 2.
That's season two.
Um,
Yeah.
he's supposed to be a good hand-to-hand combatant. He's the Kirk stand-in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool that he gets beat, but this is my principal defense against whether he was necessarily done dirty. He was done
Okay.
dirty by the writers. I have conceded that. But most of the times when Worf in TNG gets his butt whooped, it is under like some even weird for Star Trek could not have predicted circumstances. And it's like an admiral that appears to be maybe like, I don't know, 80 by Star Trek terms or older, being infected by an alien parasite that gives him extra speed, agility, and strength. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how would you see that coming? It's not like the admiral, as a regular human, beat him. He got beat right after Riker got beat, and it's like, okay, that's like a weird circumstance. And I feel like most of the time Worf gets beat, it is to show like how weird and imposing the certain, like they get the second part of the writing mechanic right. They didn't get the first part of it right. So
And I see what you're trying to point out there. My biggest thing with that is that Worf is supposed to be a strong character, but it's quick in how that fight goes. Like, granted, it's not 2 seconds. He gets thrown over, and then Worf looks at him and just like, the Cleon scowl, like, yeah. Um,
hmm
so, like, it is uh, not a quick as in like 2 seconds fight, but he does get knocked down like in like 10 seconds. So it was one of those things. Like, even before that episode, you had a whole season a whole season to show how strong Worf was, so you can like use this in other seasons or other episodes later that season, that this character is stronger than Worf, and they
But
didn't do it.
he didn't get beat by a regular person. Also, side note, doesn't Jordy get owned in that fight as well?
Yeah, but we know Jordy's weak.
Because I was trying to remember the fight in my head because I haven't seen the episode in ages, and I'm kind of like Riker gets owned and thrown through a table,
Uh huh.
and then I think Jordy and Worf show up, and
Yeah.
he just like backhands Jordy, and he has to like put Jordy's unconscious body down to start to fight
Yeah.
him. Um, so yeah, I just don't feel like that's the characters being dirty. Like the fight
Okay.
resolves when Doctor Crusher shows up with a gun. I mean,
Which is
if anything
normally
that was
that's normally how you like quickly end something. Like yeah, gun phaser, boom, he's down.
yeah, yeah. Worf loses the fight. Everything's looking pretty dire, and Doctor Crusher just caps him. And it's like, okay, fight over.
Okay, all right. So that example didn't convince you. Okay.
Well, no. Go, keep in mind what I'm convinced about.
Uh huh.
The execution was poor. The execution was poor. He was done dirty by the writers.
But
I'm trying to think of him.
you don't feel from that episode he was fully done dirty.
Well, I'm thinking about him as a character being done dirty. Just globally speaking, you'll bring up other examples to see. There was never once in the show where Worf was like, and especially in the movie First Contact, where he tells Picard, like, if you were any other man, I would kill you where you stand. That I wouldn't think he couldn't do it, despite the poor execution of it. So that's where I'm trying to like think, like, man, where was this character really like truly harmed? Um, Weird infected space admiral beat him and would have beaten up everyone on the ship until Crusher shot him. Right? Like,
Okay.
I don't know that.
What about the episode with Q, where the guy they trans Q transport the crew of the Enterprise to like this area where and they're fighting old timey. Um, they weren't humans.
The musket, the
They
big
were
musket people.
aliens. Yeah, but they had muskets, and he gets his butt beat and even killed by said musket.
See, I think that goes back to what Dorn asked to be like Worf to be more influential and smarter in Deep Space Nine. I think I'm losing this argument. Actually, I think that's another way the writers did him dirty, because that is just a low intellect move by him. Like he's supposed to know about war, and he's charging a guy with a bayonet, and I'm like, as a person who's never served in any military, I'm like, nah, that doesn't seem like the thing to do.
And then just
He
lays
has a
there while
bayonet.
old boy just like stabs him with the bayonet knife. It's just like, hold on, wait. As a seasoned warrior, he wouldn't know a move to like block that or like parry that or something. Like, really?
Yeah, he just loses all control and charges this dude, and I'm like, I don't get why he's doing that. He's supposed to be, and they show the Klingons as like intelligent tacticians and strategists
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, and I'm like, why would Worf do that? I get that he's frustrated, but like, yeah. So I would agree. Done dirty. And now my standard of whether I think Worf couldn't win a fight after that, if that changed my mind about him as a fighter, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think so. But it does. It is a big. You picked two good points on like how he's done dirty, and it's usually more about like what he's thinking and saying versus like whether I think he could fight with lethal intent and achieve his goal or not.
I mean, I feel like it taints his fighting prowess for me,
Okay.
with him being like easily taken out by this person. I mean, at least like okay, I understand that this was a character created by Q, who are very omnipotent beings in the Star Trek universe, so he can create this person to be strong. But I like at least allow him to show that he's fully holding his own, and by some circumstances, this person overpowers him too, stab him with said musket.
Yeah, you're wishing the fight would be better, which I
I
think
know
that's also a product of the time. I feel like,
it's 80s and 90s. Yeah,
yeah, fights don't get good on television, geez, until like the 2010s. Like, I feel like Arrow was the first good TV fights I really saw. Maybe I'm misremembering something. But like the
I
fights
mean,
in Discovery are way better coordinated
what about
than
Hercules and
anything.
Xena Warrior Princess?
Oh, yeah, that was good. Well,
uh,
actually,
Buffy the
let me go back and
Vampire
watch it.
Slayer. Uh,
Oh, I didn't watch Buffy, so maybe.
Granted, there are cheesy fights, so
Yeah.
I guess you probably would have more of a point. And granted, like I have not rewatched Hercules or Xena Warrior Princess, so a
My
lot of that
memory
is
is that the
like,
fights are good.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
nostalgic watching. It's just like, um, this is gonna be funny. It's just like as a kid, I really love Yu-Gi-Oh,
Uh-huh.
the animated series, and then going back and like rewatching Yu-Gi-Oh now, man, that it is really cheesy, extremely cheesy.
Sometimes you don't want to go back. Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, sometimes that nostalgia memory needs to stay intact. I would say do not go back and rewatch it. Like also rewatching Power Rangers. Don't go back and rewatch it. Trust me,
Yeah.
it's way more cheesier
Just
than what you remembered as a little kid.
right, right. But like nowadays the actors will like take some low-level martial arts and learn some
Mm-hmm.
moves
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pull off the fights that we see um, nowadays. And I just don't know if it because back in the 80s and 90s, like that's why like Jean Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal were
We're
ever
big.
famous,
That's
right? Like
true. That is true.
because those movies had like awesome fights in it. I assume. Like I don't really remember them either, but like
They wouldn't exactly
they
the
were.
best actors alive either.
Yeah, yeah. Like the acting and the fighting hadn't quite like merged like it does now. And it'd be interesting. I'm not going to do this research, so if anyone listening will answer, I don't know if the stunt people back then were really martial artists like they are now, because like a lot of stunt people nowadays can really truly fight.
That's actually an interesting point that you brought up. It's possible. Um, I don't know. I would imagine the way that Hollywood is and how many action movies that they actually created, especially within the 90s and the early 2000s, that they would have had stunt people that could um, do a lot of those maneuvers. I mean, but granted, like, uh, um, this is older than 90s and 2000s. I think back to like uh, episode 4 of Star Wars,
Hmm.
the New Hope, and how you like when you saw the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight and how stiff that fight
So,
was. Like,
I'm not. Yeah.
granted, George Lucas was working with a limited budget, very limited budget, and couldn't like get choreographers that knew how to do great swordplay. So I would concede
Yeah.
that. But
Somewhere on YouTube, I can't remember the channel. I'll try
mm,
to find it. I think I saved it as my favorites. But some stunt people got together and recut that fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader,
mm,
and it's like, wow, they should just delete what's in the movie now and put this in here so it makes a little bit more sense.
be like George Lucas, we know that you like did a lot of like redoing of CGI and stuff for the older episodes of Star Wars. You know, this fight you could just cut this and add
Throw this in here, everything will make sense.
make perfect
And
sense.
and we won't be starting a Star Wars podcast, but I have heard through just random YouTube watching that people have tried to say canonically like they had fought so many times at that point that there was no point in a big fight. Like Obi-Wan knew it was the
Mm,
end, and it's
mm.
like some. So they've tried to like rationalize it. I'm like, I don't know. I think I'd want to take at least a few hits before I'm like, oh, this is the end of my Jedi journey. Like I need like some confirmation
I mean,
before I
this,
become a Force ghost.
in my opinion, the simplest way to rationalize that would be that like it was just a byproduct of the times. Like you
Oh,
don't
they were
have
trying to
to
rationalize it in
redo it in
universe.
universe. Yeah, but it it's just like for instance, being Star Trek focused, looking at Star Trek Discovery on the when Burnham was on the Shujo. I can never pronounce that ship.
Yeah, and I'm not going
Uh,
to attempt it. Not after all the affirmative action grandstanding I've been doing. That's just not. I'm not going to get taken down that way.
and showing like the technology and how it looked and everything, it looked more advanced than the original series Star Trek. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, we can create way better set pieces now than what they did in the '60s.
So in
So
my brain, I'm like, that's how it's always was supposed to look. It's just,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Also, I'm not sure if I said it a few minutes ago, but updating the fighting in Discovery is
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
Worf in
Oh yeah.
Discovery would be a very interesting concept because you could just do actual martial arts
And
with it. So
especially like my favorite move in all of Star Trek is the double fist, the double fist hit.
man, I don't. That is the one thing about, and I know we're staying in the TNG era, but it's the one thing about the Way of the Warrior
Uh
that
huh.
I don't understand is in the Way of the Warrior, you got Garrick and Goldacott are fighting in a hallway, and they're using guns in both hands to fight.
Uh
And we've
huh.
seen Worf in the past do that. I'm
Uh
not sure
huh.
where Worf is in the middle of like the big bridge invasion. I can't remember where he is. But how they defend the bridge of the space station with just two-handed punches, I will never understand. I'm like, okay, I
Worf
get
was
that.
in the he was on the I want to say the bridge, but that's not what they called it. Uh, they called it ops. He was at
Yeah,
ops.
ops. Okay, so
Uh,
he was in ops in the big fight as well. So I guess he
yeah.
just wasn't featured. Which now that is a done dirty. That should have been a big moment
Uh,
for him.
he
Um,
didn't get knocked out. He held his own
he
against
did.
other Cleons. The
Yeah, the only person who got like stabbed in
O'Brien.
the fight was Kira.
Oh no, it was Kira. Yeah, you're right. It was Kira, not
Yeah,
Orion.
again one of the better fighters on the on the ship, given her background,
Yeah.
got stabbed by a Klingon. But yeah, that whole fight sequence is Klingons running up with all the sharp weapons they have, batless,
Hmm.
swords, megless, whatever, getting two-fisted punched in the stomach and then are just out. And I'm like, okay, I need
But
one
these
day
are
I
the
need
strongest
like
warriors
a
in the galaxy.
yeah, yeah, they're with Gowron. These are the leader of the Klingons. And I'm like, okay, I know the two-handed punch must hurt a bit, but it's and also just as a fighting thing, I don't do any like
Hmm.
fighting, right? Like I'm not trained in any martial art. Like the most I've
Hmm.
done is some kickboxing classes with people who do MMA,
Yeah.
and what they talk about, like how you want your body to move in a fight and how where you want to protect yourself and all that stuff. I'm like, how is getting your both hands in a ball and exposing yourself totally and putting all your motion into like a bat swing going to help with someone who has a bat lift? Like I don't.
I don't know why the
It,
writers thought that this was just like the move.
yeah, I'm so confused, and I'm like, especially at Starfleet, I'm like, you have a database surely of every martial art there ever was, and everything the Vulcans can teach
Yep.
you, and the
Yep.
Klingon martial
Yep.
art, and probably the
Yep.
Romulan martial art. Like you got like all these
Hmm.
martial arts you can learn. Like everyone in there could be Batman with the right training,
Not
and
wrong.
double fist
Not wrong. But
is
double
what we
fist.
lead with.
Yep. Double fist or that terrible I had to stop myself from cursing right there. That terrible martial arts that they showed in season 2 that you pointed out when Commander Riker's father came on board.
Oh yeah.
Like, what the hell is this?
What is this?
So,
I
but
yeah.
But you did point out something though. Even though this is the TNG center when it comes to war, the fact that in Deep Space Nine they not only told you how experienced Kira was when it came to militia and fighting, uh, they also showed it up until that point. So
Yeah,
her getting taken out was one of those things like, oh crap, oh is she okay? Like
that's sure. That does make the situation a little bit more. I mean, the Klingons are invading Ops, so it's already like
it's already pretty dire. Yeah,
top notch. And then like you see her go down, and it's like, oh well, O'Brien's not gonna save the day. Like,
yeah.
like what's gonna happen? No offense to O'Brien, I love O'Brien as a character, but he's not presented as like,
I don't know.
yeah.
We could probably do an episode of how O'Brien was done dirty in DS9, but
Well,
well,
but they did that on purpose. So, but yeah, we could. They had
true, true, but
they had like a.
to the level that they did him though, I think yeah, I
I
think I'm
mean,
gonna
there's
make that
some.
episode. I think I'm making that an episode. Now that I think about it.
I mean, they were some sadistic mofo's writing these episodes where they tortured him, and I'm kind of like, do y'all need help? Like psychological help? Like, how did
Yeah,
you think of this?
I know Steve Shives already did this episode. I know he did. Uh,
Oh, you did? Okay.
but I feel like we have to touch on this as well. Like, cause that, whew, whew, we thought Worf was
Yeah,
done
they
dirty.
they do some stuff to O'Brien, and I'm like, I don't know why. Well, they do. They I think because I was watching, I went to the theaters to see the documentary, and I thought
Hmm.
they said something to the effect of like, oh, well, he's the everyman on the station. He's the guy that everybody relates to, and I'm like, well, personally, being a black man, I don't relate to him
I
that
don't.
quite like that, like
Yeah.
you're describing. And secondly, even if I did, why what you did to him was like it wasn't like he had a bad day at
Hmm.
work.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like one of his, I know we'll do the episode, but I'm like one of these episodes, his wife gets possessed by a power wraith
And
and threatens
really,
herself and his child.
to make that episode different from Steve Shives, I think I want us to touch on not only just one particular character with O'Brien, just how the trope of using one particular character in each series and pretty much torturing that character is a trope of
Hmm.
Star Trek. Because you
Oh, that's a
had
good one.
You had Ensign Kim in Voyager that they did dirty countless times as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the direction we're going to go with that particular episode, but that's more to come on that one.
Well, unpopular explorers, you've gotten a peek behind the curtain of how it comes together. Assuming he doesn't edit this out.
No, I'll probably keep that in.
All
But
right,
okay,
all right.
okay, but I want to go back to like
You were talking
uh
about Kerrigan's stab and the trope working again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I wanted to pick the other episodes where Worf was done
Oh yeah,
dirty.
yeah.
So what about the episode where the Ferengi are introduced? And within that episode, there was a battle on the planet where Worf got his butt beat by Ferengi.
Does
By
okay? Wait.
Ferengi.
Does he? Okay. Well, first off, they were setting up the Ferengi as the big bad,
They
so we
were.
can't be like the Ferengi because they weren't supposed to be
I will give you that.
what they became. They were supposed to be
I,
more like Romulans or they were supposed to be, which not to make this political, but a good enemy to fight. People put profits before well-being, but
mhm.
anywho, in case anyone wants to think about that last statement harder in today's context, um, and I don't remember the scene. I didn't watch the episode obviously beforehand because we're trying to do the medium effort episodes right now,
Mhm.
given what's going on with all our stuff. I don't really remember how that fight ends. I think he gets jumped by like three or four of them. I think he's like actually
Yeah,
choking one
yeah,
of them
yeah. It
at some
is.
point.
It does take more than one to really like
Yeah,
overpower him. I will give you that part, but the fact that the Ferengi, even within this episode, the actors that are portraying the Ferengis are not physically statured uh, beings.
yeah. Again, I think it especially doesn't make sense in the modern day context because if you could go full martial arts, he would just like
Mm-hmm.
solo those dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that martial arts wasn't really in the stunt coordination um, back then, at least not to any noticeable degree. But
Mm-hmm.
doesn't he just fall over? He like slips, doesn't he, in that fight? And then it gets over when the dude who shows up again in the Star Trek Resurgence game. These people that I can never remember, despite us playing that whole game.
I think it's more of a
He kind of
falling
like ends the
over.
fight.
Yeah. He comes in, he pretty much ends the fight altogether. But it is more of a like falling over. I don't think he slips in that. But
Okay.
it's still one of those situations where it's like, okay, this could have been one of those moments where you show like how strong Worf and
Yeah.
the Klingons are. But like
And that would
at
have made the trope work because I think that one was
exactly,
early enough
it was
where,
early enough. I think it was like one of the first
yeah,
3, 4 episodes of the season. I don't know the exact episode number, but yeah,
which if he like knocks out like two or three of those dudes and like someone gets like a lucky shot on him or something,
yeah,
because I think they had laser whips back then, which is aggressively stupid.
yeah. I
So like,
I feel like how I would have rewrote that particular fight sequence would have been to show like how the humans in the party were having trouble overcoming the Ferengi. So you had Riker who had
yeah.
issues. I believe Geordi was there.
And
Uh,
then Riker can't have too many issues because he's supposed to be good hand to hand as well.
he
So
is, but you could use him in that particular situation to show like, oh man, even Riker's having issues with him. But then
yeah, and
like
then
you
Worf
cut to
excels.
Worf just
Yeah,
like pretty much just like throwing one clear across the planet.
yeah,
Just like like just like taking them out one by one, and then just like you can get a Ferengi that's off screen, showing him like cracking the whip, and that's how Worf is taken down. Like that.
yeah,
That to me would have made more sense. It's just like, oh yeah, Worf is doing the darn thing. It's just like, oh whip, okay, yeah, I mean, he got shot with the stun whip there. I mean, what more can you do in that particular situation?
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, definitely could have been better. That being said, by my standard of Worf being done dirty, and I think that's what we're starting to crystallize on, is that I
Mm-hmm.
agree in one sense with Worf being done dirty by stunt coordination, writers, for sure. I didn't leave that episode thinking Worf couldn't fight to lethal intent
That's true.
with that. So I guess maybe I don't know if it's a different standard. I don't think it's a higher standard or anything. I
Okay,
I guess I never got turned off to the idea that Worf was just getting slapped around and really because the thing that the meme makes me think of is that Worf is like all talk no action, and there are things that happen in the next generation that show that that is not the case. Um, and
okay,
I don't know if you have this on your list, but jumping way ahead, like when he kills Duras, um, snatches off the badge. Like we'll get to it, I
that
guess.
is that is one of the episodes on my list where they act. Where I feel like that they showed
Oh,
uh,
okay. I need to let you do
a
the list. I'm
good
gonna let you do the
prowess.
list.
No. That's actually a good. This is actually a good time to like bring that up. There have been episodes that like they showed in TNG. I'm not pointing out DS9 because um,
Woo, hoo, hoo.
we know in
He
DS9
runs through some Jim Hadar in DS9.
they truly do a service to Worf as far as his fighting prowess, as far as his level of strategy, uh, as far as him being a commanding officer. Like they do a good job of building Worf's character in DS9,
Yeah.
which we
Even
just stated that like Michael Dorn
yeah.
stated to the writers, "Hey, like if I'm going to do this, you need to portray Worf in a better light here."
Even back to kind of our comeback episode a couple weeks ago about fascism in the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
His command decision to fight the Lakota in that two-parter is a brilliant decision. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's also you can interpret it as like, oh, it's a Klingon being Klingon, but it's also him recognizing like we are on the more important mission than necessarily what the Lakota is here to do, shooting at us. So
Mm-hmm.
And in that scene, you guys must know I love this two-parter. The two-parters in DS9 is probably an episode on its own that we could talk about.
The two parts in TNG were also like
Yeah,
freaking phenomenal.
yeah. Worf like takes damage, then says to hail them, and then I think something else happens where they take more damage. Like he goes through like the command checklist,
Hmm.
hail them, try to see if something's wrong, scan the ship or whatever, and then he's like, "We're out of options."
Well, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah. Now we're gonna throw down, and they threw down to the point where like Leighton was like, "Oh, I didn't know, I didn't know they had that kind of fight in."
I didn't know. Apparently, the Defiant was upgraded with ablative armor that no one told us about. Like, yeah,
Hey, there's
that was kind of a top secret thing there that you're not
those
supposed to know
reports.
about. As
Those
especially
reports
as a
get
newly
from the
captain, a newly minted
right.
captain.
Those reports from the wormhole. They get to Starfleet slow sometimes. Like it just takes a little while. It just takes a little while. That's all. O'Brien was just gonna hit send on that right before he
Yeah,
left, but he had to
yeah.
leave real quick.
Uh, that's why that memo didn't get to you. Sorry,
Yeah,
apologies.
I love the fact that Cisco had the Defiant upgraded and didn't tell anyone about it. I'm like, that is such a Cisco thing to
It,
do.
so as I know Star Trek lore, from what I believe is stuff like that that's considered very top secret. It's the people who are part of the project, so the DS9 crew know about it, but
Hmm.
people outside of it, lower ranks, don't know
Okay, got
unless
it.
you're the level of a captain, which those top secret things do go out to all captains, knowing this particular set of information. So
Yeah,
captains, admirals, so on and so forth. But like a commander probably wouldn't know. Definitely a lieutenant commander, and so on and so forth. So it made sense, and I'm glad they actually touched on that in that episode. So it made sense that she would have known because she was literally just promoted to captain. So a lot of
right,
the top secret information that they give to the captains, she probably wasn't fully briefed on at that point.
right. Okay, okay, that works. What were
So
we talking about before this?
now, I want to go to the next episode of
Okay,
that I feel like he was done dirty. Probably gonna
but
fire
you do
off.
have,
Uh huh.
because I brought up the Duras thing, you do have a couple episodes where he wasn't.
Oh
So
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, got
I
it.
try to make this as fair as possible, as
Okay,
possible. Even though I'm kind of biased at the fact that I feel like that he was just done dirty.
we're we got that. Well, I mean, but we're agreed by the writers and the stunt casting.
Yes,
I
yes.
think I don't know how we're netting out on if the character ever not felt dangerous uh, or not.
It.
I think that's
I feel
I
like it
think
was
that's my
hard to
only yeah.
believe, though. I feel like as Trekkies, we understood that the Klingons were a strong race. Um, so when him getting like knocked out and stuff, it it wasn't difficult to believe, but I'm thinking this from the mindset of non Trekkies, people who don't know the lineage of the Klingons, and just seeing Worf just like pretty much get manhandled like this. It's like
Oh, that's a good point.
you're expecting me to believe that
That's a
like
good
this is
point.
one of the strongest characters on the Enterprise. Not only that, one of the strongest races in all of Star Trek. It's like it's hard to believe,
Yeah,
especially how Worf is getting his butt beat.
that kind of goes back to our prior episode. Where do you start someone? If you wanted to start someone, and it was clear that Worf was a skilled,
Mm-hmm.
lethal fighter, you probably would start with DS9 or the third season of Star Trek Picard.
Or
To
introduction of the character showing how well this character can fight. Like that,
yeah,
if they started off in the encounter at Farpoint, having a situation where Worf had to fight a strong character, like, and that was the very first scene that you saw Worf in, then it would be like, oh, okay, he's the brawn of the cast. He is one of the people that like is really strong and has a lot of strength, and probably will be used in those particular situations.
And I wonder if they didn't do that. And I know you're trying to get to another episode. I
Hmm.
wonder if they didn't do that because of alleged actions of the supervising producer. Um, if they weren't settled on it, then why would you give them a big moment in the
Introduction
premiere?
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it
that
doesn't
makes
excuse
sense.
it,
That makes
but
sense.
maybe it helps rationalize it at least.
But when it comes to a lot of the retconning that's been done in Star Trek, not only just like from a different series to another series, but also a lot of times within the same series. I felt like once he was promoted to chief of security, they could have retconned that really easily by having an episode of him being like just. I mean, I have to curse in this particular situation. A badass, like
Yeah,
he. It would have been easy to do that. Whereas, like, oh, okay, we never showed. Now he's a series front runner. Now he's a regular series character. We can't. He's not in the background. Let's show what he can really do, and actually
yeah,
have an episode
yeah,
centered on that.
yeah, yeah. No
I,
doubt.
I felt like that could have
Supervising
been hard.
producer allegedly, uh, writers and stunt people did them dirty. I just don't want the supervising producer to have like fallen on hard economic times and is just looking for people on
Allegedly,
the internet.
allegedly.
Allegedly,
All right.
can't can't state this enough. We are not saying this as fact.
Okay, I have a few of them here.
Yeah,
So
I get it. We
uh,
gotta get rolling.
there was an episode where the memories of the bridge crew, uh, by that
I love
extension,
that
pretty
episode,
much
by the way.
it is one of my favorite. I would agree with you. Um, the bridge crew and by the extension the Enterprise crew as a whole got pretty much their memories wiped and they didn't know exactly who they were and they were trying to figure out who's who. Worf thought he was the commanding officer because of the sash that he had on his chest. It
Which is
was
an
like,
interesting,
uh-huh,
yeah. Well, it's an interesting note because that whole premise is to show what they would really be like if they weren't assigned roles, like where their personalities naturally gravitate. And
yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Worf really just like was like, I'm in charge, and I'm clearly in charge.
I feel like it did make sense for his character because he is the more aggressive character. He is the more domineering character as far as his personality is concerned. So I felt like within that situation, it did make more sense because Picard was known as more of a peacekeeper, more of a person that will find a way to talk things out than actually like fighting be his first instinct. At least before the
Yeah,
Borg came, I should say.
right. Until that one movie that
which
Worf would have killed him in.
which first contact was probably by far one of my favorite.
Oh yeah.
I think it is my favorite, and this is blasphemy. I know Trekkies. I know unpopular explorers don't at me. All right, I know that the Wrath of Khan is considered like the greatest Star Trek movie ever to be created. I understand that, uh, but I feel like First Contact
However,
is better. I do. I love that movie. I still watch it continuously to this day.
hmm
Um,
and we continue to act like Nemesis didn't exist. So
it didn't. But within that particular episode, the alien that portrays himself as the executive officer, the number one, over Riker. uh, once they get to the antithesis of the episode of what is being done, he pretty much just like handedly, I believe it's he grabs him by the neck and just like flings him or something like that.
Yeah, so that is very complicated to
It is.
me because of the structure of the
It
episode.
is.
Um, which, by the way, just going back to our previous comment, that Worf taking command versus Picard falling back
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a interesting study on the concept of leadership to me. Like,
Mm.
what is leadership really? So we'll set that aside for I don't know another day, if ever. Um, but I don't understand because they never give any context on the race. This is the one that like challenges my he really only gets beat up in special circumstances, which this is. He doesn't remember exactly who he is, but he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have his
Mm-hmm.
skills. But then this dude also takes like 5 phaser hits to put down as well. So I'm like, is this species just especially strong, or did Worf just get owned for some reason because his brain's being affected? Yeah, like it's a weird situation how it ends. But yeah, he gets owned at the end of that episode, and I'm like, is it a special situation, or was he actually supposed to be able to take that guy? I have no idea because I don't know what
I feel like
is
he,
special about that
but
alien.
granted, like you said, I don't. They didn't really fully flesh out that race.
Yeah,
So
they're
you,
so technologically inferior that they could end the war with one photon torpedo,
yeah,
and that's what cues everyone into like, okay, something weird is going here. How are we fighting a war of people that we can just we have like 1,000 photon torpedoes on this ship. How are we in a death match with these people? But the individual alien, by my logic, to preserve Worf's character not being done dirty, has to be like super strong, and he gets
mm-hmm.
like shot more than once. Takes more than one phaser to put him down, and I'm like, this is an odd mix of things to happen.
It is. It is. And I would be remiss to say that um, you could make an argument that that race is stronger than Cleon's, but they don't really depict it enough for you to
Right.
feel that that race is stronger.
It comes out of nowhere that he's able to put Worf down, and that it takes more than a few phaser hits to take him. And it's just like, okay, well, why did you guys waste time with the memory trick then? If you could
Mm-hmm.
just send like 30 of you and commandeer the bridge, and then just go blow it up, and you don't have to like try to convince people to blow it up. So
Exactly.
it is a
Exactly.
massive plot hole in that
Like
episode that I like. I like
why
the episode. I
why
really love
did
the
you have
episode, but
to memory wipe this Federation ship in order to end this war when you could apparently y'all know how to memory wipe. Why can't you just memory wipe this other race that you're at
you can
war with?
memorize and sneak onto the ship
Yeah, like
and change our computer. Like it starts with like a
mm-hmm,
giant plot hole, but it
mm-hmm.
is a great episode. I do enjoy it. Once you
Still one
get
of my
past the
favorites though.
fact that once you get past the fact that none of this makes sense, like, you can really enjoy the ride of seeing all the different characters play out, their personalities play out. Like Ro Laren and Riker hook up, and you get that's why they
Uh
don't like
huh.
each other
Uh
so
huh.
much. Like there's something else going on in their relationship. So there's a lot that gets played out as they learn their own stories, and I think it would be an interesting situation in honestly real life if that happened to you. If you were like around your friends and you had to like learn who you are, but you remember everything you need to do to be the person you are. Like, how would you approach that? Like, it's a nice thought experiment of an episode,
That is
but
interesting, especially within our friend group. Um, it, I feel like this is definitely a conversation I would like to have with you offline. But like
yeah,
depicting who would be the one that would like pick up as the leader, who would be that person, who would be that person, like that. That is a very interesting premise to me.
yeah, yeah. The premise way covers up a plot hole. The many plot holes they
Oh,
use
one hundred
to
percent.
start and resolve the episode. So I love the episode, but yeah, like
Because by that
or
token, just about every episode or movie that was created you can point out a number of plot holes, like you just
Yeah,
can. It there's I can't even think of a movie or episode of a show where everything's so buttoned up to where there are no plot holes.
right.
But that's where writing comes into play. With good writing, with good premises, with good acting by that nature, like you disregard the plot holes. You're just like, yeah, that was a plot hole, but that episode was so good. Like,
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have plot holes. You just have to make everything else so good that people don't realize it until years and years and years later. Like I was watching a little bit of Mission Impossible Fallout
uh huh,
not too long ago, and there's a whole scene where Ethan Hunt, obviously Tom Cruise's character, gets away on a motorcycle, and they have like this big motorcycle chase in Paris, and he like um,
oh, I remember that.
gets out of the situation by like jumping into like a well or whatever that like is under a bridge, and they catch him in a boat and drive away. And I don't know why, but it took me, I don't know how many times I've seen that movie, this time to see it to realize, oh, so they don't have a police helicopter in all of Paris.
Mm,
Like one police helicopter and like this whole gag doesn't work, right? So
yeah,
if this happens in LA, there'd be like 30 police helicopters on it, and he jumps into the hole, and they're like, oh, he jumped into a boat in the hole, and chase him down the river, and they just end up getting arrested, right? But like,
but wouldn't
yeah,
the
so
thought
like there's
process
plot.
there would be there wasn't enough time to get the police helicopter into the air to join this particular chase?
Well, see, that's the thing. I think that's where you keep a tiny plot hole and write over it, right? Because like sometimes the audience does the work for you, and they just make the leap for you. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, the police helicopter, they didn't call it in yet, or
yeah.
whatever. The chase goes on for like 7 minutes. That's enough time to get someone in a helicopter and
Is it
over
though?
there.
But
So
is it though? Do we
I
know how
feel
long
like
it takes to deploy a police helicopter?
I feel like in America, the police helicopters are just in the air already. So maybe in Europe it's different. Maybe they don't do it that way. But my point is that yes, you can write over a good plot hole and people suspend disbelief and make it work, and that's how this episode works. But it does leave us not understanding if Worf should have gotten owned in that situation or not.
Exactly. But now I want to touch on like situations where characters were possessed and they owned Worf.
Yeah,
Like like my very favorite is when Deanna Troy gets possessed. It just like breaks his wrist. It was so
the
funny.
missing day. That's right. Yeah, because the alien that I'm remembering this episode now. Yeah, an alien takes over Troy, and they are trying to piece back what happened. He's like, and I think they're like centering on like Data is the person that has caused the
It's
missing
that
day to
caused
happen,
it.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and they're like, he's like, yes, if someone broke my wrist, there's not that many people who could have done it. Data is one of them, and then it ends up being Troy, and
It
it
ends
ends
up
up
being
being
Troy.
Troy with like,
Yeah.
she just grabs his wrist and snaps it and throws him over there. And it's like, hmm.
Which is crazy because it's like this. So with this empathic race taking control of Deanna Troy, like all of a sudden, like that also heightened her strength as well. It,
Right.
that's it's kind of hard to believe here, but okay. I mean, we'll roll
Well,
with it.
but that goes back to my point of Worf really only gets beat up in really weird situations.
Yeah,
Technically, we don't know what the alien did. So
technically.
maybe the alien had the Captain America serum with him that works for like 15 minutes and was able to use it, because probably on your list is the one where he actually fights a super soldier at some point and it doesn't go well. But I can't, I chalk that up into like, okay, something weird happened and Worf got beat up, because also in Worf's role, he's supposed to be the first one. He's supposed to take that hit if there's going to be a
He
hit. He's
is.
supposed to beat
Yeah,
everyone
with being the
to
chief
the
of
fight.
security, he's supposed to be the person, like that person on the SWAT team that like enters the
Yeah,
room first. Like, yeah,
he's supposed to kick in the door.
yeah, and And also I do want to point out that that episode was in season 4 and it was titled Clues. So just in
Mm-hmm.
case somebody wants to rewatch that. But yeah, um,
Another good episode.
really good episode. Really good episode. Even though there are plot holes, but really
Yeah,
good
plot holes and
episode.
everything. There's plot holes in in-game people.
Exactly.
So, you know.
Exactly. And I also want to point out there was another episode where Data was possessed and kicks his butt, which is more believable because it is
Which
Data.
Data can do, as what we talked
Yeah.
about earlier. Data can beat Worf in a fight. He can beat everybody in a fight.
And
So, like,
but the other episode where I feel like was kind of dirty, especially by the extension of how this character is portrayed in DS9, is O'Brien when he was possessed by an alien and he kicks Worf's butt.
yeah, I'm trying to. That's the episode where everyone's in 10 forward.
Yes, that's the 10-4. I believe it was O'Brien. Um, Jeez, it kind of it kind of eludes me a bit. It's not Riker.
It's O'Brien, Troy, and Data get
Yeah,
possessed.
O'Brien, Troy, and Data.
They
You're right. Yeah,
they would have taken Riker, but Riker had broken his arm. And then yeah, they take
exactly.
everyone hostage in 10 forward. And I think they're trying to get like them to get into a different kind of orbit
They're trying to get them, yeah,
so
yeah, to
that
go into the orbit
yeah
of this planet that's supposed to be like this prison for these. It's really just their consciousness that
yeah
was in
so that they can
prison.
possess everyone else. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Worf gets beat in that episode. Again, the possessions are weird because to your point, like, does every possession turn you into Captain America, and now you can just take Worf? Like, he's there. Like, it's not like O'Brien has the strength or Troy has the strength to do this naturally.
Hmm.
So they have to be bringing something to the table. But yeah, those are weird ones. I will grant you that. It
And
doesn't change how I think about the Worf character because it's still in the weird bucket, but in
mhm.
the writing stunt coordination bucket, I will grant you done dirty for sure.
Well, but there was an episode that you also pointed out where the super soldier that was a prisoner
Yeah,
that they, well, I should say they made a prisoner because he was a byproduct of an old time within their era, that got free and was pretty much loose on the Enterprise and trying to find a way to pretty much get off the Enterprise and be free. Period. Where he did fight Worf and I believe that if I'm remembering that battle correctly, that wasn't like a quick, like he
nah,
handedly took care of him. That did take some time before Worf was subdued.
yeah, that one was probably the most fight choreography we ever see in the show, and even then, it doesn't stand up to modern standards.
Yeah, as far
But
as
yeah, they
fight
go at
goes,
it for a while,
but
and even
but it
this,
does at least track with the strength of Worf and the believability that this person could um, find a way to overpower Worf.
yeah, because basically he uses his super strength. Because I think it's in that YouTube clip that you were referring to. He
Yeah.
uses his super strength to like throw a bunch of heavy boxes on him, which almost kills him in, in a different episode. But it throws a bunch of heavy boxes on him, and that like basically beats Worf. Like he doesn't get like knocked out or out technique. He's just like
Hmm.
the dude's literally like, I got to try to do something to get this guy to stay down. So it's not that Worf can't lose because we see a bunch of Klingons lose fights.
Exactly. But he was just
They're
outsmarted in that
yeah,
particular fight. It's just like, oh, he could actually get me. I might want to find some other way to subdue
yeah.
him to give me enough time to either escape or
And once again, Worf is
mhm.
the only person on the ship that's able to track this person down
Yeah, because
because I think if I
he's chief of
remember the
security.
setup, yeah, he's like eluding everyone on the ship, and like Worf figures out where he's going to be
Hmm.
there for the fight to 1v1 him, and just that dude
which is
is a good fighter as well.
which
So
is a good point because that is a good way of like showing how Worf did use his brain at times
yeah,
to like
one of the few times they let him do it.
oh, I know where he's gonna be, and he just so happened to be. He goes to the area. It was what a cargo bay
Yeah,
that he realizes that he's going to, which is crazy to me because on the Enterprise, I believe there's like 4 or 5 cargo bays, and he just so happened to pick the cargo bay that he's going to. Granted, this could have been extrapolated because he was like on deck 10, and the direction that he's going would seem that he's going to cargo bay 3. Like I
right.
get it, but still, it's like, did he? Would you really extrapolate that he's going to cargo bay 3? Because if he's a super soldier and very cunning and everything, would it be like, oh yeah, the direction that you think I'm going is cargo bay 3, but I actually go to cargo bay 4? Like,
Well, and I think if you want to do the writer's work for them, which we've not been trying to do, that could be a reason why he went there by himself, so
mm,
that he didn't like commit the forces to the wrong spot in case he was wrong.
true. Okay, true.
Thinking thinking he could take the dude on his own, not knowing anything about him, and then it
Yeah.
turns out the dude's a super soldier.
Well, now that we're focused on like not knowing anything about this character, there's also another episode where he gets his butt beat by the shapeshifter, old lady woman. That's the episode where
That is a terrible, terrible episode of television too.
that's the episode where they're transporting this. Uh, I guess you could say princess in a way,
They call her the Dauphin, the Dauphin, or something like that. Yeah.
which is like the
Boy, is it crappy.
and this is supposed to be like her caretaker, but they always kept showing off screen like that there's something like different about these people, especially before they were even beamed up to the Enterprise. They asked, "Oh, what predominant species is on the ship?" And it's like, "Oh, human. Why? Why do you ask?" "Oh, just wondering." And then they come aboard and they look human, and then it comes to show like no, they actually are this shape shifting beings that can shapeshift into practically anything. And
Right.
this old lady shapeshifts into this big bear looking species that just like handedly takes care of war.
Again, no one's ready for that, including the audience at that point. Uh, Also, Wesley Crusher falls in love with one of them, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the
Uh,
Wesley centric episodes.
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe Worf should have been able to take that thing.
I,
I don't know.
I'll
It was
give
like
this
eight
one
feet
as
tall.
he
It
didn't
was like
know,
fighting Chewbacca.
because it was one of those things where everybody was just like, "Holy crap!" Like, oh,
And
we
once
didn't
again,
know
he
that
has to
this
take the first hit.
exactly, exactly. So I'll I'll be more lenient on that one, as like we didn't know that this species had this ability, but it also made sense within that episode because this person, this older lady, as she's depicted in human form, was supposed to be her caretaker, which by that
And
extension also protecting her.
and she looked like everybody's grandma. Like, you
Yes,
would not be thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to fight her to the death as a bear, basically.
which is actually a good tactic. I mean, I feel like Secret Service should all look like old grandmas, and somebody tries to go after the president and just like, surprise,
Gotcha.
gotcha.
I'm sure the Secret Service would disagree, but like, no, no, no,
Oh
we
yeah,
want to make a show
completely,
of force. We're not really
completely.
inviting.
Okay,
And that's all I'm going to comment about Secret Service
hey,
protection
that's all we're
here
doing.
on the internet.
Moving on, moving
Do
on,
a
sir.
good job. That's all I'm saying. Do a good job. I say do a good job.
Always, no
Not gonna
matter
say
who's the
anything else.
president, do a good job.
Exactly. Do a good job.
So, the last one that I will point out, um, and this one I will preface with, um, I don't know if I could completely say that this was an episode where he was done dirty because
Okay.
of the message that they were trying to portray within this episode, which is also a good episode in my opinion. And that's the episode. It's in season 5 called Ethics, where Worf is paralyzed by a barrel that fell on his spine.
His greatest enemy. The closest anyone came to killing him. The barrel.
The
What was
barrel.
in that barrel that crushed his spine? Like, I know Star Trek has some futuristic materials, but that was not a big barrel.
Like, what
And
was in this barrel?
yeah,
Like, and by that token, if you go back and rewatch that episode, that barrel bounced off of him. Okay,
it bounced.
like
It didn't look like anything happened.
exactly. So, like, at least portray physics correctly here. I mean, in a scientific show, like. In real life, if that barrel had something that was that heavy that could break somebody's spine, like it would not have bounced. It would have just like laid on top of him, and it
Yeah,
probably
it
would have
would have
broke
killed
more
him.
than just his spine.
Yeah, he would have been dead. He would have been dead. Yeah, that whole episode. I think a lot of people like that episode. I don't know for
I
sure,
do,
but
I do.
that whole episode, and I don't hate it. I like the episode, quite frankly. But the whole time, I do have a hard time suspending disbelief because I'm like, it didn't look like that hard of a hit. Does he really have to get Commander Riker to stab kill him now?
And I
And
and
also,
and I believe he made like that Worf grunt whenever it's like he really gets hurt and oh.
yeah, they really tried to sell it, and I was not buying it the whole time.
I, I
Um,
I can definitely say I was as a kid, all right, watching The Next Generation. This is probably what 91, 92 when this episode came
yeah,
out. So I was roughly what 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. Uh like okay, yeah, I could kind of believe that. Not kind of, I did believe it. Like it was entertaining to me as a kid. But like in my older age, going back watching that, I was just like, how as a kid did I not like fully pay attention? And I'm a smart kid. I'm not a dumb kid here. I'm a smart kid. Like I should have looked at it and been like, why did that barrel bounce off of him? Come on now, like that's not believable. That's not how physics
yeah.
works.
I I don't know how old I was the first time I watched it, but I was definitely old enough to be like, why is he so hurt? The whole episode, I was like, why is he so hurt? Only to be compounded by Dr. Crusher giving a very 1990s diagnosis to him of like,
Hmm.
well, you just won't ever walk again. And I'm like, so by the 21st
So
century, we have no answer for paralysis. We're just same answer
I,
that we have now.
I
No
would
progress.
believe if it was something dealing with the brain, like okay, I would believe you because the brain is the organ that no one fully can truly understand how it
Yeah,
fully works. I can understand that, but the spine, like we got techniques now here in the in by that token at that time, the 20th century, uh, that we can fix like certain major issues within a
a number
spine.
of things are that weren't once fixable are fixable now.
Yeah.
Not everything. Don't want to disrespect
And then
anyone
now,
who hears this with a disability, but yeah,
yeah, definitely don't want to do that. But like now, even in 2025, there's a lot of spinal injuries that can be fixed. Not all, but there are a good number of them. So extrapolating that to the 24th century, which is what 2, 3 centuries ahead of ours,
yeah,
like
yeah. We should be good, right?
should be, I would imagine. That many
Yeah. So
years of medical technology and then also combining that medical technology with other races from other species and then like learning
yeah,
how uh, and then it happening to a race that have like redundant organs and stuff.
yeah. strange. Very. I feel like Crusher was mailing it in because doesn't the episode end with like some other doctor being like, "Oh, I can do it." She's just being, I don't know what's with her today. Like, I'll pull up
the
and get this done.
yeah, there was another doctor that had like this experimental procedure that could possibly give him back his mobility.
And
And
Crusher was like trying to hate on that doctor too. She was all like, "Well, the research and the this and that and the other," and it's like, okay, but you got
but
nothing. Your
but
answer is he can't walk
but
again.
that goes back to what I said at the beginning of this when I was prefacing this particular episode, which is one of the main reasons why I love this episode, because they were wanting to point out of like certain uh, procedures that were seen as experimental at that time that could actually save somebody's life, but it's never been done on a human being. So it's like it's one of those things that the medical field has issues with. So when is it the right time to cross that line to actually use this on a live being to see if this actually works? And like by that token, that doctor was pointing out to Beverly like he's a Cleon, he's a warrior race. They believe that if they don't die as a warrior, that they are useless. Him not
Yeah,
having the ability to walk or do the things that he did before, he's not going to be considered as a warrior. By that token, not even get his right into Stova Core. So why not try this on him? If he decides that yes, I want to try this procedure to see if it works, then why not? And that was my. This is one of the few times where, and Grant, I love Beverly Crusher. I love her character, but this is one of those few
oh
times
yeah,
where I was like, Beverly, what's your problem here? Like, what's the
yeah,
issue
but yeah,
here?
what are you doing? What is your argument?
Yeah, it wasn't like this is something that's going to disfigure him or like change who he is or you know anything to that level. This is just something that either will help him to walk again and to use all his limbs again, or it just won't. One or the other, or by the exit, he might even die on the table, which he wanted to do anyways because he wasn't able to have the full life that he expected
Yeah,
to have. So,
the only reason why it hadn't happened yet is because Commander Riker did his research and was like, you're supposed to ask Alexander to do this, and you're trying to spare him, and I'm not gonna help you do that.
yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been a done deal before I think even that doctor shows up in the episode.
And that was another plot point as well with that episode showing how society shows. I can't really say the word on YouTube because then they'll flag.
Assisted
But
unaliving.
yes, assisted unaliving, and how that's portrayed within our society. Which, like, yeah, I even have my issues with. I grapple with that particular
Mm-hmm.
topic as well. It is one of those areas where it's just like when is that a acceptable practice? And a lot of times, as especially as a person that really loves life, loves humans the way that I do, it to me it's like there isn't an acceptable
Right.
time, but there is an argument to be made that in certain situations it can be deemed as acceptable. And that's one of the main reasons why I love Star Trek because they hit on these hard hitting topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about or touch. And it's just like, hey, these are topics that as human beings we should be able to have a educated discussion about.
Yeah. And I don't think society's even approached an answer
No, no, no,
definitively one way or the other.
no.
I mean, granted, not to get political, but there's some other stuff that we need to work on first.
Of course.
Not to be insensitive to folks
Agreed.
who might want that as a treatment option, but yeah, we'll get to you.
I mean, and just on this topic, like I've even had this conversation with my wife. These are some of the hard hitting conversations that you have with your spouse. Like if I'm in a vegetative state where it looks like I won't have anywhere to the quality of life that I had before, and there's the option to pull the plug, just let me go. Just go
Mm.
ahead and pull the plug. It was kind of hidden in that area, uh, at least from the way that I viewed the episode. It was kind of hidden in that area. Like I'm not, Worf is not going to have the same quality of life that he had before. He's not going to be able to be the chief of security. He's not going to be able to be a warrior. By that extension, with the type of race that he belongs to and what he believes in, what quality of life will he have after that? And then like in Crusher imposing her beliefs on being a human, saying, well, he could still have a strong quality of life. He could still do things like, heck, we had one point in time, like she didn't say this, but I'm thinking this as being a treasure. We had one point in time somebody in a beep chair that all he could say was yes and no.
That would be amazing if she had said that.
That would have been
I wish the writing
actually they should have put that in there.
that would have been an interesting development in the episode. Especially if any technology had been made beyond the beep chair
Yeah,
as a potential future for Worf. But yeah,
but
yeah,
like I understood her point from a human standpoint, and the way that we are as a race. Like it's yeah, you're not able to walk, but there's still things that you can do. I think of Christopher Reeves by that extension, who led the whole thing with come to STEM research. And granted, on how you feel about that particular topic, he still did something with his life before he passed away. He still
hmm,
had some semblance of a life while he was still alive, even though he was paralyzed. So,
yep,
yes, yes, Crusher, and by that extension, you are correct. But you have to take into account his species, what they believe in, what he
yeah.
feels.
Is it the way of the warrior? And the answer to the
Exactly.
episode was no.
Exactly.
So yeah, good Worf episode. Really, the only fight was Worf versus Barrel in it, which
I didn't mean to wheeze when I laughed at that, but that was the fact that you said Wolf versus Meryl. That's hilarious.
I mean, it was the closest I think anyone's ever come to killing
Yeah.
Worf in combat was the
Yeah.
barrel. So
Yeah.
someone airlock that thing before it does something else to the crew.
So those are the episodes that I will point out that didn't exactly portray Worf the best way. Besides
Yeah,
that last one I felt like I don't think that episode could have landed or hit the way that I felt it hit for me if it had been any other character. Because of Worf and what race he was and what they believed in.
yeah. I think an episode that is off the beaten path that you left out, which is a show don't tell thing, is
Mm-hmm.
the one with where Picard gets shot and Worf is okay, and they just show up with Picard, and they're like, "Well, his synthetic heart isn't working, and he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
die," and like he ends up going to Q. And I'm kind of like, "Well, that one hits directly like at his job performance. It's like
Yeah,
you were with
that's
the
true.
captain to
You were
make
with the
sure."
captain. That's literally your number one job. That is essentially the chief of security prime directive. If you go down to any away mission with the captain, I
Yeah,
would agree.
sorry, I don't know if my audio went out there. You might have to edit that part out. But yeah, I lost audio there for a second.
Okay. Well, I'll go back and check on that. But that
Yeah,
is that is definitely a good example of
Worf
another
getting done
time
dirty.
where he got done dirty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I said at the beginning of this episode, I don't want to just point at the times where they just did him dirty. I do want to point at the times that they actually did justice to him. If in TNG, DS9, we have already established that they did him like they portrayed Worf in probably one of the best lights in DS9. But there are situations in TNG.
And I know you never like to talk about Star Trek Picard, but season three, Star Trek Picard, his role and his appearances, I felt like was really good, especially with him being an older Worf
Hold on,
at
wait.
that point.
Season three in Star Trek Picard. There was only one season in Star Trek Picard. It was.
No,
I don't know of any other
remember in the
seasons.
first episode, in the first season,
Season season one and
they
two. No, there's only one season of Star Trek Picard. I don't know what you're talking about. All right,
okay,
I'm
it's
completely confused here.
well, we'll unpack that in a future episode. But in the season that we agree on that exists, I think the beheadings are on Wednesdays. Chamomile tea, Borg fighting Worf was
Yeah,
also
yeah.
really good.
A series that actually had really good fighting choreography.
Hmm.
They really did Worf justice in that. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. But okay,
Yep.
so I'm actually go with this in order because this is one of the areas where I do have the correct seasons and titles of the episode for. So
Okay.
season one, Heart of Glory, which is probably uh, one of the better episodes of season one in Star Trek when the Klingon warriors
Oh yeah,
come
you
from the
mentioned that
fray.
earlier.
I mentioned
Yeah.
that earlier. Yeah.
Hmm.
This is one of the greater episodes that not only portrayed Worf more, but also just like showed the Klingon race. It fleshed them out way more than what the original series did.
Yeah.
Probably one of my what you want to say?
Well, it also showed that you could blow up the whole Enterprise with a phaser,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
I think is a
I thought
design
there was a
flaw.
shield around the warp core.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Tasha Yar was definitely like he's pointing a gun at the warp core, so there's a chance we could all die. And I'm like, that's a
I was like, I
really
thought I pretty
like
I'm
there are
pretty sure there
phasers
was a
everywhere on this
shield.
ship.
There was a shield around the warp core that like blocks energy because like the whole thing is like radiation. The radiation that I don't know. I would
Maybe
have to.
that was getting maybe that was getting installed next week. Like, but
If
the
we go
way she
back
was
to
acting,
the very first the Next Generation movie where they talked about
yeah,
the
everything was on
Enterprise.
Tuesday.
See, oh, that's Tuesday. That's Tuesday. No, not
Yeah,
the
the
Enterprise
way
C, Enterprise B. Excuse me.
yeah, the way Tasha was reacting, it seemed like he could have killed everyone if he
Yes,
pulled the trigger. And I'm like, that's living on a razor's edge right there. Because once again, there are phasers all over the ship.
that
So
that is funny to
it'd be
point
like
out.
having a stick of dynamite thrown in a pile of matches with gasoline, right? Like if
Uh
you can really just take the whole ship out with a phaser, like that's not good.
like a manure factory. Uh, and like there's batches everywhere. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we should have some type of redundancy here, like
Yeah,
something to protect.
a lighter in a fireworks factory. Like
You
there's a
know,
lot, right?
uh, we should protect against this. Um,
Let's just say it directly. It should not be that easy to unalive us all.
it shouldn't at all.
Like,
I, you know, I didn't realize this after until doing research for this episode, but season two actually had some really good Worf centric episodes, and I guess this is because season two they actually decided, oh yeah, he should be a central character or
hmm
whatnot. But there was season
allegedly.
two. Uh, there was season two, the episode known as the Emissary, where they first introduced Kalar, which is Worf's first love interest.
They have a little fight that leads to a little bit more than a fight.
Yes,
Um,
They
in the
show.
holodeck.
I would say for that they showed the Klingon mating practices uh, within this episode.
Yep, yep, they sure did. And go back to our technology episode when we talk more about like the holodeck and like, really, should that happen on? Okay, but whatever.
And
It
then,
happens twice in Star Trek now because they did it with
oh, you mean,
Jadzia as well. Because she calls for the bat lift in Deep Space Nine, and I think that's on the holodeck where they fight a bit and then they have a fun fight.
so the rules of the holodeck are kind of skewed in a way because it's like, yeah, they have safety protocols, but also a sharp object still like meme you. It just won't kill you. So it's like, how does the holodeck know when it's going to kill you, but by that token still like cut you? I don't.
Hey, when Kalar and War fought, and when Jadzia and War fought, maybe the holodeck just knew that hey, this ain't a real fight. This is just nature.
It senses them and like, oh, pheromones are really high here. Oh, blood pressure is extreme. This is. Oh, got it, got it.
They
Safety
look looking
protocols off. Wink, wink.
off. They don't need safety protocols for what they're about to do. They need a safe word. They don't need safety protocol.
And by that token, that particular episode, um, I really loved that episode because it showed Worf's command abilities, especially when they had to portray that he
Oh
was the
yeah.
commanding officer of the Enterprise to the Cleon ship that they were going after that was still stuck in the past,
Mm-hmm.
to pretty much fool them to power down and not ignite a war with the Federation. So like that's an episode where they really did a good job not only building Worf's character and showing the love interest and building a relationship there, but also showing like, hey, Worf can take command if he needs to and do a good job there.
And who thought of the solution? Did he think of the solution in that episode? Because
It was Kalar.
oh, Kalar came out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kalar told Captain Picard, I think there's another way to do this. And what I thought was interesting also with that is that they Kalar could have said like, I'll portray as the person that's taken over, that is the commanding officer for the Enterprise, but she was like she would rather be seen as a subordinate because of her half human, half Klingon trait, and you can actually see physically that she wasn't fully Klingon. So having an actual fully fledged Klingon next to a half human, half Klingon uh, person would have been it was so masterful. It was a good idea in that particular circumstance because it really had those Klingons being like, "Holy crap, things did change."
Right. Exactly. And they were historical Klingons, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When did women take over in the Klingon Empire? Was that in Discovery? Was
I
that like
don't
the
think
first
they
time?
ever stated that the women had like because you kind of think of it like the same situation with our race that human not human that females didn't
Yeah, not
have
black people. Human
yeah
race is what he's referring to.
that females didn't have equal rights with with males. I feel like, or I believe I should say, within the Klingon race that females a lot of time like pretty much had the same rights as males
Well,
within
but
their
Gowron
society.
in one episode was like, women aren't allowed to serve on the council. And like he says it like pretty
Oh yeah, I
definitively, and that
forgot about
was
that.
so there's some weirdness there
But
because Laurel was
then
in dis-
that goes against what happened in Discovery though, in the first season.
well that's the thing, like it's either in response to whatever happened during Laurel's reign, which would still be bigoted,
Yeah.
or it just was like a weird comment just to make sure that the Duras sisters couldn't themselves be the leader, but why would you do that in Star
Well,
Trek in the 90s? Like
the
it's a
whole the whole idea for that was to bring up Duras's son. So
yeah, but why
I think they did
you
that so they could introduce Duras's son to give Worf that and trust me, I am not at all saying anything that female should not lead at all. I'm not at all saying. I'm trying to streamline the logic of
we
what the
voted for Kamala
writers.
and Hillary,
Oh,
and I voted for
100%,
Stacey Abrams,
one
given where
hundred
I'm
percent.
at. So, and did it
If I had,
happily, and will do it again if I need to.
if I lived in Georgia, I definitely would have voted for Stacey Abrams. But by that lineage, I think that was their whole way of breaking it down, because having Worf at the end say that he's not going to kill Duras's son, and I forgot his name, was a big deal
Yeah,
for his
whatever.
character. So if they had it be a female, that would have came off weird in that way.
Interesting.
That's the way
Okay.
that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know if I totally. I know what you're doing, so I know I'm
Mm,
not disagreeing with you, but that rationale I think is still a bit strained because as long as Garon doesn't say women aren't allowed to serve on the council, then he could just choose not to kill the Duras sisters, and the Duras sisters could be trying to put themselves on the throne.
on
So
the throat,
I
yeah.
get, yeah, I get, or whatever it is that they call it, the pain chair or whatever that you lead the council from. This is why they don't send me to Klingon negotiations. They're like, oh, a little tequila, and this guy's all of a sudden talking about pain chairs. I still don't get why women can't serve on the council. I guess still, but I think your explanation in terms of '90s TV and sensibilities
Hmm.
makes sense.
We kind of have to
I just
view a
hate that
lot of
it
these
makes sense.
episodes.
Yeah,
I think of it as somebody that is a Bible scholar. Like I think of it as when reading the Bible, you have to not only when reading the verses fully understand the context of that verse and chapter, but also understand, okay, like who was saying this, why were they saying this, what time was it, what land were they in, what were the customs of that land, so on and so forth, to actually be able to extrapolate and break it down to say,
right.
oh, I understand why they went this direction with this. So I look at it from that particular standpoint. So
Okay.
this is a work, but like this is a work of fiction. So you kind of have to like look at what the world was at around that time when this work of fiction was created, regardless of
Yeah, that's
what
interesting.
you feel about it.
Yeah. Because nowadays, I think that line wouldn't be in there, and him deciding not to kill the Duras sisters at the end of it would still be just as big of a leap. But
Hmm.
I guess when you don't give him the out of like, oh well, they're women, so of course he wouldn't. Like, yeah, I guess, yeah, you have to go back. Don't go back to the '90s. We don't need to. There's
No,
enough
we
of that
don't.
going on
No, no,
today.
we don't. We don't. We don't. We're not going back. All right, we're not going back.
We're kind of on our way back, but hopefully
mm,
we can stop before we get all the way back.
Look, we said this was not going to be the political episode, Patrick.
Oh, sorry. That's my bad.
because as some Trekkies was point out, Star Trek is not political. Okay, all right.
Foreshadowing. Have a foreshadowing of future episodes.
Okay, going forward, also within season two, the episode reunion when Worf's son Alexander is introduced. The next time when Kalar comes aboard, but you know this is also the episode where Kalar, spoiler alerts, does also die by the hand of Duras, because Duras is trying to take control using uh, by another way of putting it, Romulan tactics, not Klingon
Mm-hmm.
tactics to get to become Chancellor. And that's also the episode where Gowron is also introduced as well.
And
And
And Worf murders
I
Duras
was
in
getting there.
solo combat.
I was
Okay.
getting there. Yeah, that pointing out an episode where Worf was done uh, wonderfully, I should say. Like,
It's probably my best piece of evidence because I haven't done a TNG rewatch in a while. Maybe I need to
mm-hmm.
do one this summer when some of the new TV coming out kind of slows down. But it's probably my best piece of evidence of like, okay, if it's regular person, not possessed, not an android, not with a bug parasite in it, versus Worf, like you're in a world of hurt. Like
Yeah,
you don't just go pick a fight with Worf because you saw
yeah.
him get tossed across the room by the Borg because he went straight over the Duras' ship without his communicator and unalived him with extreme prejudice. And
Oh, Worf went with the express belief that, oh, it is going down. The
yeah,
Federation is not going to like what I'm about to do. No, throwing this
yeah.
off. I am not a
But
Starfleet officer right now.
like, but we are doing this because this is our customs, and I never saw like Commander Riker never picked a fight after seeing that with Worf, right?
I would I would imagine after that, I would feel like Commander Riker would have a lot more respect for Worf. Like, granted, like, yeah, what he did was not becoming of a Starfleet officer. But also at the same time, it's like I'm pretty sure Commander Riker would be like, look, if somebody did Deanna Troy like that,
Yeah,
that person's getting got. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, that person's getting got.
yeah. And the way that it goes down, Worf shows up on the bridge. Duras doesn't know what he did, and he says, "Kalar is my something in Klingon that means
His mate.
boo or
Mm-hmm.
bay, yeah, or whatever." And he doesn't like sneakily get him. They don't just he doesn't just barge in and they just start fighting and he catches them off guard. Like they stand there for a second, and Duras is like, "All right, someone hand me my sword,"
Yeah, Duras
because
is like when Worf says, uh, Kalar was my mate. Duras is like, ah, crap. Give me
yeah,
my bat lift. Like, Duras knew at that point, oh, I gotta fight him. Like, cause he knew, like, honor dictates that we fight about this.
yeah, it's very ritual combat. So like they both are fighting with lethal intent, not surprised, using their skill to the best of their ability, and Worf wins.
Which
And
is,
I'm like,
but also by that token, like, it was one of the things that I didn't understand why the Federation would be upset with that. Because in that moment, he took off his Starfleet badge. It's essentially like you're at work. Some
yeah,
somebody says something to you, and it's just like, oh, really? And you take off like your badge or you take off the shirt that like shows your company, and it's just like, at this moment, I am not a part of this company. It's just
and
me and
also
you.
also doesn't the Prime Directive allow this to happen with no real
Yeah.
concern?
Yeah, because yeah, even though he is considered a member of the Federation, like, still, this is their custom. This is what they believe in. This is how they take care of these particular sets of disagreements. And another episode that I was going to point out was, which was probably one of my favorite, was I believe it was the ending of season 5, which was a two-parter going into season 6, where the Klingon War occurred. Um,
Great Worf stuff in this one.
Actually, like, no, I actually got that down. It's into season 4, going into season 5, where by at the end of this is on the season finale of season 4, where Captain Picard knew that the Klingons were going into a civil war, and Captain Picard had been giving him leniency throughout that whole episode. Like, yeah, but like there's a fine line of how much help you give them because this is considered a a civil matter,
Right.
which would go against the prime directive if we assist it in any way. Uh, and
Mm.
by this time, Picard was like, "Okay, you're done helping them. Like this is a done deal. Hey, Worf, like your time is up. You need to come back to duty." And Worf was like, "Well, I guess I'm not a part of the Federation anymore."
Yeah.
And he threw down his badge.
It's like I actually need to go stand on business over here.
You know, so by that token, essentially in that same situation, like when Worf took off his badge, like he is no longer a a Federation officer. Granted, like now that I'm thinking about it, god dang. The writers kind of did touch on this, so they are kind of like getting to me because Picard did say that he cannot pick and choose when he's a Federation officer and when he's a Klingon.
yeah. Well, but I think there's a difference between following a small ritual that does have some political impact, because Duras was trying to.
Become
It's a
chancellor.
chancellor.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, okay.
yeah.
I was struggling
He was
trying
a
to remember.
candidate to become a chancellor. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it had some political impact, but it's like it's the laws and custom of your home world. Like it doesn't matter who you are, uh, or at least it shouldn't in your home world. Not to get political, but it doesn't matter who you are. You have to like
Mm-hmm.
follow this custom versus a situation where you are actively like digging up intelligence and participating
Yeah,
in actions
yeah.
that could lead to a civil
That's
war.
true.
Like I think
That's
those are
true.
two very different
That's true.
applications of the Prime Directive. So
Because
I don't know. I think
there's been times as me being a manager that I've had to give my employees certain leeway due to their customs. Uh,
right.
like that's their religious belief, that's their custom. So it's just like, yeah, like if that is a part of your religion and custom, yeah, I'm going to accommodate this.
Now, if they were about to drag you and your entire employer into a war,
That'd be a different
they're
story.
like,
Oh heck no.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
You are allowed to quit, but I can't put it all at risk
Because
for this one thing.
if we're looking at it from that standpoint, um, if he did not uh, avenge Kalar in this situation, he wouldn't be accepted into Stover Corps because that's part of
Yeah,
his beliefs.
yeah, exactly.
Like he wouldn't be considered a true warrior if he did not fight Duras in that situation, regardless of whether he won or lost. If he did not fight Duras in that situation, he would not be considered a full fledged Klingon, a warrior, and be accepted into Stover Corps. But and also by that token, him avenging her also uh, gave her her place in Stover Corps as well.
Yeah. So I think the two actions are entirely consistent and are definitely two instances where Worf was not being done dirty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, like you said, there were situations where he wasn't done dirty, but
Was that
here's
your last episode? Because I have one more.
no. I want
Okay.
that was my last episode as far as how he wasn't done dirty. But I
I
did
got
want to
one more
come
about
back
how he wasn't.
to give you the nail in the coffin. But go ahead.
Um, before we get to that part, there was an episode that I don't know how this episode's received, because I think it was like a season 7 episode where he's literally traveling the multiverse and has to figure it out. Um,
Okay.
it's it starts with a show
The
don't tell moment of him winning a bat lift
the Battler
tournament,
Turner. Uh
which
huh.
is yeah, which is pretty awesome to begin with. I wish they had shown some of that so that, like we said, the issues with early in the season. But then he has to figure out this whole multiversal mystery with
Mm-hmm.
multiple enterprises to get back to his own homeworld. He gets a Geordie killed, which is not cool. But he does this whole thing and gets back pretty much on his own, which is the kind of thing which I think to date with that character was not the kind of mystery you would think
That is
he would
true.
totally be able to figure out on his own. So I thought that was an episode where they didn't do him dirty. In fact, he was a bit OP in that episode.
That is true. They did do right by his character by that point, and like yeah, that was I believe season 7. So by that point, he's had essentially a lot of character development go,
Mm-hmm.
going up to that point, and then and it's pretty much showing how that development over his career, not only as a Starfleet officer but like as a Klingon, how it developed him to be able to come out to the conclusion that and get out of that universal paradox.
Yeah, yeah. So he spanned the multiverse at some point, which they didn't. I don't even think they totally revisited outside of the mirror universe until Lower Decks.
Yeah,
So I thought that was a good moment for him, and I like the way one of the things that tipped him off that he was in a different universe besides being married to Troy was that he got fourth place in the Battle tournament, and he's like, "Oh no,
no. We ain't going down
not
like
not
that.
this Worf."
No, no.
He's like, "Y'all done got
Uh,
me messed up with someone else in here
but
because this Worf."
but it's funny that married Worf gets fourth place. so
as
be,
a single Pringle, no comment.
so being married to Troy, I'm not as great as a warrior, but like being
I'm
single
just,
with no one, like I get number one,
you
bruh.
know what? Honestly, fair deal. If I was married to Troy, I would have less time to practice too, and be very happy about it. So,
I'll give you that.
gotta have
I'll give you that.
priorities.
Okay, I do want to touch on my nail in the coffin. So those were the
Okay.
instances where he was portrayed in a really good light in the Next Generation. But I feel like my nail in the coffin as to how he was done dirty came in season 3, and it was the episode titled Sins of the Father," where he just found out he had a brother. Like he
Yep.
never knew he had a brother up until this point. Finds out he has a brother. This brother has been part of another family for this time, and they took this as the time uh, to align themselves to pretty much defend his father. But then it
Okay.
turns out that, but then it turns out due to the craziness of that time and what happened with Duras's family and how much power they had within the empire, if they had outed Duras and his family, then that would have led to
Right.
a civil war, which is what occurred in at the end of season 4.
Right. We get to it, but yeah, we stop it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, and he essentially knows the truth, knows that his father was not a traitor. He has a brother now, but he has to swallow all this and be disaccommodated by the council and
Mm-hmm.
pretty much live with the shame as a Klingon. And by that token, his brother couldn't really out himself fully to say
Yeah,
that
because
that
he
was
couldn't
his
be
brother.
dishonored either. Yeah.
Exactly, because it would essentially ended him. Worf was like, I pretty much have a fallback. I'm in the Federation. So even though this does suck, I'm still in the Federation. They accept me. Blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But you will probably feel different, but to me, in that particular situation, it was so dirty. It was so dirty because it's like it was almost up until this point, like, dang, Warp can't win. Warp cannot win. Like he had a mate, had a baby by said mate, and then she dies. He keeps getting like manhandled by all these other species. Granted, the barrel hadn't happened up until this point, but like he gets hit by the barrel.
His greatest enemy.
his greatest enemy, and he gets disaccommodated by his own people, even though the chancellor knows that it wasn't his family that did this. Dude, dude.
Well, now you're talking about the overall arc of the character, which goes well beyond this show, and a lot of the stuff you mentioned doesn't get fixed. In fact, it gets doubled down on, right?
In
In
DS9, that's
DS9,
true.
one of the things that you're talking about. Um, I find this particular moment to be extremely heroic, where he puts the very Vulcan proverb, the good of the many,
Always
ahead
believe
of
in
the
the
good of the
few.
one.
The
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Uh, and I don't know. I think that's just what heroes do. Like, he took on a burden that no one else could take on to keep the peace for now, um, and didn't undo it until um, it looked like the peace was going to fall apart anyways.
Anyways,
So I don't know. I look at it as a rather heroic gesture. I as a nonfiction writer, if I dabbled into fiction and wanted someone to look extremely heroic without necessarily killing off the character or anything like that, this would be something that I'd write. So
yeah.
I do feel differently.
I'm sorry. I would have been, I would have been like, I, I would have stood on business. I'm sorry. No, you. This is my family. You talking about my blood? Like you. So we're not going to point this out because his family just so happens to be really powerful within the Enterprise right now. Nah. I would have been like Captain Picard in this particular situation.
There are four lights.
No. There ain't
Keep,
five.
keep,
There are four lights. Fuck you.
keep in mind, he was a broken man when he said that.
He
He
was.
only said that because he knew he was being rescued.
Hey, I
Uh,
told you before we started this episode. Hey, I'm finding a way to put this in every episode. I'm finding a way to put this clip in every
yeah,
episode. All right.
it's coming every episode. I understand, and
I
I
don't know.
once again
I don't know
forgot
where, but it's
that
coming.
you're.
It's coming. All right.
Um,
But I understand what you said as far as like the character development of Worf at this time because he was all about his people. He was all about the good of the empire. What is
people
best
that didn't
for
even
the
raise him.
empire? Yeah, but and that's my point. I was about to say that. That is my point. He was not raised a Klingon though. He was truly raised a human, but he was taught his Klingon beliefs as well. So to me, I felt like the character would have been more indifferent in that situation than more stoic and actually taking, essentially falling on the sword. Essentially,
But that's the point of making it a big character moment, is that he makes a decision that changes his trajectory and arc, which shows him to be bigger than what you understood him to be before. And I don't know. I think that's good. Like, you don't look at Worf the same from
yeah,
that point on. And I think it's because he makes a heroic choice. Like, he probably, I don't know how many lives he saved by making that choice at that time, despite the fact that something that was like very important to him got taken away, and the fact that he can't have a brother that he I don't think the character was established as wanting a brother, but certainly now that he knows he has one, would rather have a relationship with than not. So yeah, I don't know. I don't read that at all as the writers doing Worf dirty. Like, they kind of actually turn him into a superhero.
yeah,
Um,
but by that extension, if we're looking at the Klingon Empire, the Klingon race, they are a race of warriors. So the Chancellor stating that this will cause a Klingon civil war. Wouldn't you more so want that as a race of warriors? Because your past dictates that all families did was fight over who was the strongest, and ended up coming out on top, and then coming together to subject other races and conquer other races. So wouldn't you want that as a warrior race that hadn't had any type of war in by this point probably decades, to ignite your empire, to feed that that nature of wanting to fight? Wouldn't you want to bring something like this to light, to start something like this? Because it felt like in that particular situation that the chancellor was looking at his power and not wanting to relinquish said power, not necessarily the way that I look at the Klingon Empire fighting for that power.
And you have thrown out, I mean, we'll be here till like 10 o'clock talking about that because you've thrown out really a different episode topic because we've seen the Klingons actually deal with that, with there being more aggressive Klingons versus Klingons that want more peace and all that stuff. They're very complicated on that topic. I would say some Klingons would say yes, some Klingons would say no, and the one in the Federation uniform that could make the call said no on that day.
He did. You know what? You're right. He did give Worf the the choice to make in that situation, whether to take that shame or not. He. You know what? You're right. That I'm thinking about that episode. He did. He just pointed out what could occur if they were to bring that what happened into light.
Right.
But ultimately, the decision was his. However, the badass moment in that particular episode was uh, Worf saying, "I'm gonna do what's best for the Klingon Empire," and then knocking the crap out of Duras, and then saying, "Now I'm ready."
Yeah. Let me get. Let me get this first.
All right.
He
All
also
right.
tells Picard to shut up in that scene,
He
which was also
did. You
yeah.
are
He
right.
owns every bit of it. The Chadich will be silent. Like, ooh.
You are right. I don't know how I would have took that as his captain though.
Or maybe that's why it took him so long to get promoted. He was like, oh, you can talk to me like that. All right.
Afterwards, once we go back to the Enterprise, I would have been like, "Hey, I I commend you on what you did. However, this part where you told me to be silent, hey, I didn't like that at all, bro. We need to talk about this.
We're going to talk about that in your next review. Everything else was aces, though.
Okay.
Sparing everyone from bloody conflict, not empowering the Romulans to take over our quadrant of the galaxy. Yeah, loved all that. But hey, watch how you talk to me.
So by that extension, everything that we talked about today, do you still stand on the fact that he wasn't really done as dirty as we make it out to believe?
Um, let's see. I think as the meme states, where like he's not really a fierce warrior, I don't think I'm convinced on that. I am convinced on the writing doing him dirty in the next generation. Um,
Okay.
I I think I'm good on that. I am also at the very end good on the fact that he hasn't really gotten a clear win quite yet.
Just in life, period. Not necessarily fighting, but
Yeah,
just in life.
yeah, because I don't even know. Because by the end of Picard season 3, I don't even know if he like has a wife or grandkids or like what that situation is. Uh,
That
form,
is
and
up in
he's
the
like,
air. I don't believe he does, but it is up in the air because they don't even like touch on it.
yeah, he seems much more at peace with everything that's
Yeah,
happening. They make that very clear, which
yeah.
is a win in itself. But I don't know if it's like the the type of social win that we typically agree to. And maybe that's something wrong with us. Maybe someone going through a warrior life and ending at a place of peace should be good enough for us, and we shouldn't really commentate on it
But
like
yeah,
whether that's a win or not.
but yet you're looking at the character though within that particular situation. But when
Yeah,
you look at the circumstances that led to that in real life, with everything that happened with Jadzia's character and the wonderful woman who portrayed her, having to want to have uh, it was she wanted more money, wasn't it? It was either
I
money
think
or
so.
something else. Uh,
Because she went to CBS
yeah,
to be on Becker, which would be a big money show, I would think, back then.
it would have
Becker.
been, even though it
Everyone
didn't
remembers
last that
Becker,
long.
especially any of the Gen Z listeners will
Do they?
remember the classic of
The,
Becker. No,
the,
there's no way they would. I barely remember Becker. I'm
they were
surprised I remember that's a show that she went to be
they were
honest with you.
expecting for it to be a big show, but it never took off.
I
Uh,
don't think so. It may have been on for a while, but I don't think it became what what I thought it was going to be. But I don't know. This isn't the Becker podcast.
exactly, but but that's what led to um, Jadzia being unalived at the end of season
Right.
6, which by that extension having it to where because really she was the one who brought to the writers and producers that Worf and Jadzia should become an item because she had the way that she had started reading her lines to when Worf had came onto the show was kind of like in a flirtatious manner to Worf.
Mm-hmm.
And then she brought to the producer of the writer saying like, I would believe with everything that Jadzia had has been through and how much she loves the Klingon race and how much she knows about them, Worf would be one of those men that she would be enticed to, that she
Yeah.
would want to like get closer to. And so the writers were just like, that's a really good idea, and they wrote it in.
I would want more money after that too.
That's true because it led
So
to one of the
can't
better
blame her.
plots in Star Trek DS9. Really,
Yeah. So let me limit myself to the next generation, like you said.
yeah.
Still, by the end of the next generation, I still believed Worf could fight and take anyone. I think the Duras episode sticks out. I probably could think of other ones if I had done proper research as opposed to like running errands and everything else that I needed to do today before doing this. But I do agree with you wholeheartedly that the writers did him dirty, um, both in the way his character's intellect worked,
Mm-hmm.
especially early on, and
Mm-hmm.
I almost like it's very specifically early on they did him dirty.
Mm-hmm. But that goes
And
back to
maybe it's
what I
because
told
of
you about the producer of that show
yeah,
and what he
allegedly.
said. Allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I agree with you on your standard. As far as the character feeling like the character isn't effective or can't act with lethal intent or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm moved off of that point. I'm not less afraid of Worf or sitting here thinking I could take Worf because look what happens to Worf all the time. Like I don't think that, but I do think the writers did him dirty.
I'm gonna have to agree with your stance on this. Um, the writers definitely did him dirty within the pantheon of all the episodes that we pointed out, and how they did him after making him more of a series front runner, and the character development that they did add in. Granted, my main issue was with the Duras episode where he had to take the decommendation from the Empire, and then also his greatest enemy, the barrel. Uh, I, you know what? This needs to be a thing. No, how whenever we talk about Worf, we always have to bring up his greatest enemy, the barrel. All right,
The barrel. Yeah.
that is going to be a thing. Uh, I feel like that those were areas where he was done dirty, but by that extension, for what you said, the writers did him dirty. But to come out on the end and say that like anybody could take him, yeah, yeah, I would have to believe that not just anybody can take him, even though those possessions were kind of crazy.
The possessions and the alien dude from the lesser species, but like
Yeah,
somehow was naturally tougher. Like, but somehow could hack the computer. Yeah, that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I think he was. I would probably say he was more. Um, it, it was plot holes that affected him more than anything. If you're
I would
going,
agree with that.
if you're extrapolating the episodes and everything, it was the plot holes, and then also not the writers not establishing him early on as someone who was pretty strong, had really good combat instincts, and was very strategic in combat. Like if they had
Yeah,
pointed that out, if they had just done that one thing at an early episode within Star Trek, I think none of this would exist. None of this feeling from
that's a
Trekkies
good
that he
point.
was done dirty. Uh, the YouTube video that points that out. Uh, like the fact that in Memory Alpha and on the internet, the Reddit and everything, they call this the Worf effect. Like they call it that. Fans call this the Worf effect, which
Oh,
is
that's crazy.
crazy. It is
Yeah,
crazy. So it's almost one of those situations like of like growing the beard, jumping the shark, those crazy situations within television. Like, wow, like calling this the Worf effect, like having a character that's supposed to be strong, but you don't portray him as being strong and keeps getting like owned by all these other characters. Like that is known as the Worf effect. So
yeah. I don't agree with that at all. That shouldn't be named after Worf. Because Worf will take care of business. Um,
he will,
especially
but we just determined that there are like the writers did not do a good job at
they didn't do a
establishing.
good job. Yeah.
So
So he's taking the blame for what the writers are doing. So, well,
exactly, exactly, which
hmm
is why Michael Dorn was like, "Hey, yeah, you want me to come on DS9? I need for Worf to stand on business. I need for Worf to not be the Chief O'Brien in in this series. All right.
which we'll get to him.
Oh, we are most definitely gonna get to him. Okay, and by that token, Ensign Kim as well. But
Which was another hilarious Lower Decks episode.
oh yeah, I forgot about that episode.
Well, I just finished the series, so it's all pretty fresh to me.
Well, I think this is where we're gonna leave it. All right. So the writers did him
All right.
dirty. The
Writers
the
did do
writers
him
did him
dirty.
dirty. So thank you for joining us on Popular Explorers once again for another episode of Strange Trek. Once again, this has been your boy, the Unpopular Black Gamer, aka Dante, here with his boy Patrick. We're gonna sign off
Yep.
also with that wonderful popular quote from Captain Picard.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
Thank you for joining us. We'll have another episode next Sunday. Y'all have a wonderful week.